What is going on, guys? Thank you so very much for joining us on yet another Tuesday night. It is Tuesday Night Titans, episode number 66 for your Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. I am your host, JD from New York. As always, joined by the one and the only who's feeling the obsession tonight, the Solid Monster. What's going on, brother?
Oh, my God. Love me some Animotion. Takes me back, man.
Unbelievable.
I'm an 80s guy, though. I'm an 80s guy.
I know. I mean, if you're not an 80s guy, I don't know what we're doing, but...
I feel sorry for you if you're not an 80s guy. I mean, come on. 80s had the best music. I mean, you may disagree, but it had the best music, the best TV, the best movies. It was great.
Cartoons.
What's not to love?
Cartoon. I guess that could be lumped into the TV. Yes, I was very much a Transformers kid, for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's not to love?
I don't know. Saturday night's main event, guys. We're coming back on Saturday nights, and we are going old school. So it's nice to see. We will definitely talk about that. But how are you doing, man? How are you doing on this Tuesday night?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great because I saw that we already had a bomb dropped on us by a very familiar face.
Oh my! I know. I mean, after the night you had on Friday. Apparently, we're continuing the party, man. Let's continue the Super Chat party with Boots and a $100 Super Chat, dropping the bomb. He's walking up to the bar, and boom, we got drinks ordered right here to start TNT 66. Love to see it. Thank you, Boots.
Great. Thank you, brother. I was hanging out with Boots last night in the live chat, so I'm glad to see him with us here tonight.
There you go. And thank you guys for joining us on yet another great episode of Tuesday Night Titans. We're going to get into a lot of stuff, man. A lot of stuff happened today. Very newsworthy day. AEW may be in the money. Tony Khan may be walking around the new $200 million man if rumors are to be accurate and correct. And then Saturday night's main event. That was announced today by Triple H and the WWE. December 14th, Nassau Coliseum, Long Island, New York. And that is coming back. No card yet, but I'm sure that show will sell out very, very quickly. And we will go over all of your top stories here in professional wrestling. You guys know what to do, man. Follow us on social media, at JD from NY206, at Solid Monster. You see the ats right there on the screen, wherever you may be watching us. Everything also is linked down below in the description. Hit that subscribe button over here. Hit that subscribe button over there for Jason, and follow him on YouTube as well. And thumbs up if you like the stream, man. I got to say, like the stream. Hit that thumbs up. And let's try for 1,000 likes tonight on TNT 66. And Super Chats are open, man. Join us with a cold beverage at the end of the show, and we will answer any questions, comments, and concerns, as always, here on TNT. And without wasting any of your time, Jason, I'm going to leave it up to you as always, brother. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I think we should probably go back and talk about the SmackDown premiere on USA on Friday, which was a big deal because they're not on Fox anymore. So they're back on USA.
Though I will say the bleeping out of the crowd, man, it's getting to me, man. It's getting to me slowly but surely.
Well, I mean, you have that problem on Monday nights too. It's not just a SmackDown thing. Unavoidable. You know where we won't have that problem?
Netflix.
That's right.
Can't wait. So I know a lot of people are expecting nudity and F-bombs on Netflix. I don't really want any of that. I just want a couple of, shits and maybe a fuck by The Rock. But, I mean, that's all I want, really. A little risque.
A couple of shits. We're not up to the Vince McMahon party. Let's leave that for later in the show, right? Please.
You know what I mean. But, yes, we moved to the USA Network on Friday. Yes, it was a good deal.
Yes, and they had a big cage match. Cody Rhodes defending the WWE title against Solo Sikoa, which I was happy to see, if only because we don't have to see it at Bad Blood. So they did it on TV.
It was a good move. I know you and I telegraphed that pretty nicely, and I'm glad to see that they did the steel cage match. And believe it or not, I didn't listen to your SmackDown stuff yet, but I said on my end that I thought that was the best Solo Sikoa match that he's probably ever had in WWE.
Well, I didn't mention that, but I mentioned the fact that it was much better than their SummerSlam match.
Oh, yeah.
So, to that end, it was a success for me because I enjoyed it more. I just thought it was a better match. They had a good crowd, too. So, I enjoyed it, and obviously they let off the show with it because, not really surprising, they were setting up for a big return at the end of the match, which was the return of Roman Reigns, who is back. And now we have some clarity on exactly what Cody is going to be doing and what Roman is going to be doing in Bad Blood, because they added a pretty big match to that card.
They did. A lot of the talking points coming out of, I mean, we discussed it. It's been discussed all over the community. What is Cody Rhodes going to be doing at Bad Blood? Will he be defending the championship potentially against Randy Orton, a match that everybody wants to see? Is it going to be possibly against Kevin Owens, who would turn heel and wrestle Cody Rhodes again for the WWE Championship, which at the end of it didn't really make sense, because why turn him heel only to inevitably lose again? KO was not taking the title off of Cody Rhodes. And then obviously you go back to Randy Orton. Is it too soon? If they turned him heel on the premiere episode on USA, is that enough time in between that show and Bad Blood to get a heel turn out of Randy and then do the match? And then what's the outcome going to be? So they actually formulated something really beautiful here on Friday night. And the match that we're getting is Cody teaming with Roman, the New Age superpowers, I'd say, against Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa, which, in my honest opinion, will probably open Bad Blood. McIntyre and Punk will close the show inside Hell in the Cell. But I think this is a great move, Jason, and there's a lot of great stuff that can come out of this one tag team match on October 5th.
Yeah, and I said this on my show, that it sets up for those people who are sick and tired of seeing Cody associated with the Bloodline, it sets up, if they take it, a great pathway to the match that everybody wants to see, which is Cody Rhodes against Randy Orton. Because, I mean, think about what they've done here. Cody Rhodes initially said, no, this is not my fight. I don't want anything to do with this. This is Roman's battle, and he wasn't going to have the match. And by the end of the show, and this was kind of goofy, I will say, because by the end of the show, all of a sudden, he's putting his name on the contract. So it's like, what happened from the time that he said, no, I'm not doing this, to the end of the show, right? Nothing changed. Nothing really happened. He got attacked by the Bloodline at the beginning of the show. He got attacked by them at the end. And now, all of a sudden, he's on board. But who do you think are two people who are not going to be very happy that Cody is going to be standing side by side with Roman Reigns? Randy Orton and Kevin Owens. And so it's a real missed opportunity if they don't, come on the air on Friday this week on SmackDown, and we don't have Randy Orton and Randy Orton and Kevin Owens confronting Cody and saying, "What are you doing? You're teaming with this guy?" I mean, we know how Kevin Owens feels about Roman Reigns. He doesn't like him. Randy Orton's talked about 18 months of his career gone because of the Bloodline. So there's a great pathway here for them post Bad Blood to take Cody and move him out of that, if they want to, and get him into his next big feud. And not only that, it's not even just about Cody and Randy. If they really wanted to drag Cody and Randy out to WrestleMania, and this is all pending The Rock, because again, we don't know what The Rock's going to do and who he's going to be wrestling, assuming he is going to be wrestling. You could have a situation here where we get one more Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens match, maybe at the Royal Rumble, before we even get to Cody and Randy. Like, you could get two matches out of it, even though we've already seen Cody and KO, if he was to go heel or just show kind of a different attitude. There's a lot of different ways they can go with this, but it all stems from him doing the one thing that they are going to look at and go, this is crazy. Like, why are you teaming with this guy? So I like it. I hope that's the direction that they're thinking of also, because I think that's the right way to go.
Well, it does make sense. And Cody doesn't really need to be in the position that he put himself in now, because he beat Solo. That's it. It's all over. He's doing it. And I know you coined the phrase dumb babyface syndrome. Cody's a dumb babyface. I mean, he's teaming with Roman when he doesn't have to. And now he's going to be confronted by his friends about, why? You don't need to be here, yet you're teaming with the one guy that we both had a problem with. He put Randy on the shelf for 18 months. KO. We saw how he acted when Nick Aldis kind of trolled him and said, yeah, I'm thinking about giving the title match to Roman Reigns, and he flipped his lid. So I like that idea. Also, what does The Rock think about this? How many people are actually talking about The Rock? Because the last time we saw The Rock was, on that go home, or actually the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania, and he told Cody Rhodes, don't break my heart. Now, I don't know what that means or what that entails, but how does he look at Roman? After what they did to Cody at WrestleMania, is Rock going to come back and be okay with Roman teaming with the one guy that they tried to vanquish at WrestleMania? I mean, there's a lot of movable parts there.
There is, and that's why I like the idea of doing Cody and Randy either for the first time or you just kind of extend it out until WrestleMania. And now you've also got a perfect in for friction between Roman and Rock if they want to do Rock and Roman in Las Vegas. And that's the thing. We just don't know. We don't know which match is going to come first if they do both. Is it going to be Rock and Roman? Is it going to be Rock and Cody? You know, Rock, can you really count on Rock for the next 2 years, 3 years to get this match and this match and this match out of him at WrestleMania? I don't know how many more matches he's got left. I don't know. He looked good this year. But for what you just said, that could be the end to do Rock and Roman at 41, and that would leave Cody to do something with Randy. Now, the other question is, coming out of Bad Blood, how do they get to this? Now, I think I did last week, I have brought up my concerns about how it feels like we're getting very close to Survivor Series. And there's been no sign of, for example, Jey Uso. How are we going to bring him back into the story? I don't know if we're getting Bloodline against Bloodline at Survivor Series. It would just, at this point, time is kind of running out, I think, to really get things together for that. Could you envision, I was thinking about this, could you envision coming out of Bad Blood, Roman, Cody, Orton, Owens, if somehow he can convince them all to get on the same side, against Solo's Bloodline, and that being the War Games match, and maybe that's where things sort of fall apart, as far as Cody and Randy, Cody and KO. Could that be the War Games match?
It certainly can. I didn't really think of that because I didn't really think that WWE would go there. But now that you kind of paint this picture, it sounds like an unbelievable match. Where does Jimmy Uso fit in? Does Jimmy Uso come back? What does he do? Paul Heyman, does he align back with Roman? I'm sure he does. Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, we don't know how they even get to SmackDown. Like you said, they haven't made any hints or dropped any hints about how they get over there. Jay's busy battling the Bloodline. He's flirting with Rhea Ripley. He's backing up Damian Priest. I could see both Sami and Jey Uso in a Survivor Series match of sorts with the Judgment Day, battling alongside Damian Priest and whomever wants to battle alongside them against the Judgment Day. So, I don't really know. You may be right on the money there, and that would actually play into some major stories happening inside that War Games match. Does Randy turn? What happens there with KO? Do they both turn on Cody? I don't know. I mean, it really presents a great picture at Survivor Series.
Yeah, and I don't hate it. I mean, I think it could definitely work, and then coming out of it, you've now set up multiple stories taking you into Rumble season and WrestleMania season. So I just throw that out there as another possibility because I know everybody is so hung up on the Bloodline Civil War, and I do think at some point we will get it. I just don't know time-wise if there's enough time to set it up properly for this year's War Games. So that's just something to consider, that, maybe we end up with a situation like that, and that's where, whatever's going to go down with Cody and Randy, that's where it goes down. Whether they walk out on him or, we get an RKO out of nowhere, now you've set up your path to WrestleMania 41. So I think they're in a good spot. I certainly hope that coming out of all this, we can get Cody away from the Bloodline because, how much longer are we going to have him involved in this? If it gets us to where we're going, I'm okay with that. But, I just kind of worry that maybe they're keeping him involved in this Bloodline stuff a little too long. But if it goes like that, I'd be okay with it.
Where do you feel WrestleMania is going? Because I put a tweet out on Friday night when Jacob Fatu and Roman Reigns were in the ring together and fans were chanting, holy shit, just at the mere thought of both of them staring at each other. They didn't lay a hand on each other. Solo pulled Jacob Fatu out of the cage before anything happened. I said, WrestleMania 41 Las Vegas, Reigns versus Fatu. To me, that's a WrestleMania match. I would not want to see it on a SmackDown or a PLE. That is a WrestleMania match. I think you and I both know that. I prefer, if I had the pen, I'm doing Cody and Rock at WrestleMania, and I'm doing Jacob Fatu versus Roman Reigns. Now, clearly, WWE's got some sort of direction. Triple H, I would be a betting man and say Triple H probably has WrestleMania by the time we get to Survivor Series, 80% completed about where he wants to go with this thing. Because he said it in the documentary before all the injuries happened and all the detours happened that WrestleMania was about 80% completed. That's what I would do at WrestleMania. What are you doing for WrestleMania? Are you doing Jacob Fatu versus Roman Reigns and Cody versus Rock? Or are you going in a different direction?
I like Roman and Jacob, and I made a similar comment where I think that's absolutely... It's a WrestleMania caliber match for sure, but I just think that if you have the option, if the option is Rock and Roman or Roman and Fatu, Fatu's going to wait his turn, and you do Rock and Roman. Like that's the big match that they would do. And then Cody is opened up to be involved in something other than the bloodline. Because if you look at it, you could do Cody and Rock, and you could do Roman and Fatu. But it's like, it's all bloodline, right? Rock is still tied into the bloodline. So you got another couple of WrestleMania main event matches here where it's all bloodline. And Roman and Fatu, maybe that's not the main event, but I kind of like the idea that if you're going to do Rock and Roman, do it next year and do Cody and Randy. Get Cody away from this. Let's get Randy involved. And you have sort of a non-bloodline main event match. And then you can kind of split it up. Night 1 could be Cody and Randy. Night 2 could be Rock and Roman. That, to me, if Rock is down, that's what I'm doing. Because Roman and Jacob could always be saved for later on. And it doesn't have to be WrestleMania. It's a WrestleMania caliber match. But if they wanted to do the match at SummerSlam, if they wanted to do the match at another big PLE, Money in the Bank, something like that, that's fine. But is it a WrestleMania caliber match? Absolutely. Is it more of a WrestleMania match than Roman and Solo? Absolutely. You bet your ass it is. You give most people, I would wager, the option of which one they would rather see at WrestleMania, Roman and Solo or Roman and Jacob. Jacob's going to run away with it.
Yeah.
But again, if Rock is down and he's like, let's do this match. Now's the time. It's Vegas. We didn't do it this year. Let's do it now. You got to do Rock and Roman, and then Cody can go wrestle Randy Orton. I think that would be fine. That's also a WrestleMania worthy match.
Yeah, again, sadly, it's all up to The Rock. If The Rock wants to do whatever he wants to do, he's gonna do it. So, I mean, if he wants to wrestle Cody, he's gonna wrestle Cody. If he wants to wrestle Roman, he's gonna wrestle Roman. If he don't want to wrestle, he's not gonna wrestle. So that's really.
He's got him by the balls.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is up to him. I mean, he can pretty much dictate how the WrestleMania picture is going to go for the second year in a row. It's going to come down to The Rock.
Yeah.
What is he able to do? What does he want to do? And what is he willing to do? I would hope that at this point they've already had those conversations and they pretty much have it locked in, but we all saw what happened this year. So who the hell knows? See,
the way I'm going is Rock, Cody. I think we finished that up from what we saw coming out of WrestleMania this year. Jacob Fatu, Roman Reigns. Sadly, in my mind, I'm thinking about WrestleMania. It's not too early to think about WrestleMania, by the way, guys. This is the prime time to start thinking about WrestleMania. Start, putting those beginning pieces to the puzzle together. I'm thinking about what John Cena's doing. I had John Cena in my mind wrestling Randy Orton at WrestleMania because I know we talked about that, and you painted a nice picture with John Cena looking for that big first win. Tell that story before he goes and challenges for number 17. I think John Cena, Randy Orton at WrestleMania is a great WrestleMania match, being that they've never had one.
Okay.
What is to you? What is John Cena doing at WrestleMania then? If we paint this picture the way you painted it.
Well, wait a minute though. If we do what you just proposed, then what does Randy Orton do between now and then? Are you just going to rush the feud with Cody to get it out of the way and then move on to Orton and Cena, or are you just not going to do Orton and Cody for another 6 months?
I wait on it.
So you would hold off another 6+ months before we get to. So what is Randy doing in the meantime? I mean, we've talked about the SmackDown roster and the lack of top heels. What exactly is Orton supposed to do between now and then?
That's the fucking problem that we run into. It's a big problem. It's so weak over there. It's like
that's a big problem. I mean, that's why, to me, John Cena is going to have his final match in December of next year. You could do Cena and Orton as Cena's last match and set that up as a big special and a big match instead of doing it at WrestleMania. I mean, I see the appeal of doing it at Mania because they've never had a singles match at Mania before, which is crazy. And so you can do, finally, John Cena and Randy Orton one-on-one at WrestleMania, and it would be a huge match. But you could also save Randy as his final opponent. It doesn't have to be a WrestleMania.
The only other opponent for John Cena that I would there's two. I think Punk is going to wrestle Rollins. I think they're saving that specifically for WrestleMania. I would say John Cena, CM Punk. But if they don't go that road, I would say John Cena, Logan Paul. Logan Paul came out and said that he is... Maybe they take that, what he said against Kevin Nash or for Kevin Nash on Twitter, and maybe he kind of brags about that same thing to John Cena. I'm the best that this company's had. Look at the little time that I've had. I mean, that's a built-in story right there. John Cena, hustle, loyalty, respect. The way John Cena ascended the heights and got to superstardom, and Logan Paul's just kind of on social media blabbing about how he's the most athletic performer in the WWE. If I did this as long as everybody, I'd be the best ever. It's like that. I mean, that's a built-in match, and I could see that happening. But
Yeah. Yeah, no, Cena and Logan Paul is one of the opponents that should be on the short list of people for Cena to work with. So yeah, that could be a WrestleMania match, absolutely.
So yeah, this is some good stuff. Hopefully they get the wheels in motion on Friday night. I know they need it desperately because outside of that on Friday night, Jason, there was really nothing. I mean, Carmelo and Andrade had a great match. Andrade is getting the United States Championship match against LA Knight. That's happening on Friday, coming this week. And Nia Jax will be defending the Women's Championship at Bad Blood, she said, against either Bayley or Naomi, depending on who gets the pinfall in that tag team match on Friday. And if Nia's team wins and whoever loses on the babyface side, they got to get banished to Monday Night Raw, which is not really that bad of a trade, if you ask me. But what did you think about those stipulations set by Nia Jax? Was it a little bit too convoluted for you? And how you feeling about that? Because I think we all know that Bayley's probably going to get the win. But I said I wouldn't be surprised if we get a triple threat match out of it. And Bayley and Naomi both pin Tiffany Stratton and get a triple threat match out of Nia, because they did allude to that in the promo.
I mean, I could see that. Even that would be a little convoluted. I think you do like a double pin.
Yeah.
I guess is what you're. Yeah, you could. You could. I mean, again, I think Bayley is going to get the match, but I could see a triple threat. I mean, the baby faces aren't going to lose. I think
yes,
we're pretty much in agreement on that. I'm still going to say Bayley gets her singles rematch. It could end up being a triple threat. I could see it, but I don't see the championship changing hands. I mean, regardless of who it is, I don't think they're taking it off Nia before Charlotte comes back. Do
you see Tiffany? Oh, you don't see Nia dropping it until Charlotte comes back?
Yeah, and that doesn't mean she'll drop it to Charlotte, because we still have Tiffany going around with the briefcase. But I would think they would want to keep the title on her until Charlotte comes back, so they could at least tease that feud.
Yeah, I mean, Nia's not really lighting the world on fire. I said I don't.
So well, you going to put the belt back on Bayley? Was she lighting the world on fire?
I mean, nobody in that division's lighting the world. I mean, Io and Bianca did last night, but outside that, no. I mean,
no. So I mean, that's fine with me. I mean, it's not like they need to rush the belt onto Tiffany. And it's not like Bayley or Naomi or Michin or Chelsea or anybody else is really, sort of standing out right now as, you got to have the belt on that person. So I don't really see the need to take the title off Nia yet. Keep it on her a little bit longer and tease out this story with Tiffany Stratton. Is she going to cash in? Is she not going to cash in?
Yeah, hopefully sooner rather than later. I think Tiffany, the way she is right now, as over as she is, I think fans are ready for it. But there's, like you said, no rush for it. She'll be champion before long. But the other big thing that happened on SmackDown, Jason, was the very overwhelming opinion of the opening theme to Friday Night SmackDown, which is Megan Thee Stallion, called "Never Play," is the name of the song. Now, coming off of Def Rebel and AC/DC, Are You Ready? Which I wasn't really a big fan of AC/DC at all. And I wasn't a big fan of the Def Rebel theme as well, which we'll get into them in just a second. What did you make of the social media discourse about the song? Now, I know I said I didn't really like it. I felt like, and I made a passing comment, I'm like, did this company forget about rock music? Because all these years, it's like, man, what happened to the classic rock songs that you'd hear on Monday Night Raw or Friday Night SmackDown? We had some bangers like Papa Roach and Shinedown and Anthrax, but it's like WWE's got this direction and they're going in it, and it literally is 15, 20 seconds. It's not going to be a make or break for how good the show is, but what'd you make of the social media discourse about this?
Well, I think you pay more attention to some of the social media discourse than I do, because some of it is just so ridiculous. I just intentionally keep away from it.
Yeah.
I have my opinion. I don't think it works really as an entrance theme for SmackDown. It's not that I hate the song. I just don't think it works as an intro for SmackDown. Do I understand why they are using it? Of course, because she's one of the more popular musical artists in the world. Whether you're a fan of her music or not, she's got millions of followers on social media. I don't know if this relationship with WWE perhaps can be expanded beyond this. Maybe she'll perform. Maybe she'll perform live at WrestleMania one time. So I get why they did it. I believe the song just dropped the week before, so it's a new song. So it's getting a lot of play, and it's popular, and that's what they're aiming for. That's the demographic they're aiming for is very young, and that's the kind of music that people of that age group are going to know and want to listen to and probably be a fan of. I just don't think that particular song fits for this show. And that was my take on it. It's not like it's a nuclear bomb went off and it's this horrendous thing. Oh my God, what are we going to do? It's fucking 15 seconds of the opening of SmackDown, which I usually miss anyway. I usually come in and already they're panning the crowd. So, I mean, it's not a huge deal, but I took issue with the new logo.
Really? I actually liked the new logo.
You like the new logo, so you're a fan of SmackDown.
Yes.
Okay.
They tried to be a little different. They tried to be a little artsy, but I saw what it was when I saw it. But everybody, like you said, saw something else. I mean, I liked it.
Okay. I mean, it's one of the worst logos that they've had. But okay. If that's how you feel, you have your opinion, I have mine. So yeah, not a fan of the music or the logo, but I get it. It's a new network, it's a new season, and it's fine, to change things up a little bit. I'm not a fan of this go around as far as the music and the logo.
Now, according to PW Insider here, Megan Thee Stallion and Mercedes Moné supposedly had an agreement in place before a WWE deal was made to have her music as the intro to SmackDown, which apparently caught the Mercedes Moné circle by surprise. Now, Moné and Megan Thee Stallion met in February at the Crunchyroll Anime Awards in Japan, and this led to negotiations between their managers regarding doing something together with All Elite Wrestling. Now, a deal had reportedly been reached, and Moné even teased getting in the ring with her during an interview with TMZ last month. She says, "Whether she's going to be my tag team partner or my opponent, we have to see. But I want to get Meg Thee Stallion in the ring very, very soon one day." Moné also revealed that she had previously been in talks about the two working together in WWE, but nothing ever came to fruition. Now, on Friday, as you guys know, Megan Thee Stallion responded to a clip of her music being featured on SmackDown by saying, "I think it's finally time I make my debut, LOL." Now, nobody knows if Megan Thee Stallion's music being the SmackDown theme and working with WWE will prevent her from working with AEW, but I'll be a betting man and say, yes, I think it's going to prevent her from working with AEW. And Mercedes' dream of working with Megan Thee Stallion is something that's gone up in smoke, Jason. I'm surprised, man. WWE being petty and getting Megan Thee Stallion before Mercedes does? Well, color me fucking shocked.
Yeah, you know what? It's a cutthroat business, man.
It's
a cutthroat business. That's what it is. It's the name of the game. I mean, you can't be surprised.
No, I was not surprised the moment I seen this article. No, I don't know why anybody would be angry over this, but that was the news. So Megan Thee Stallion with WWE and Mercedes, she's got to go. I'm sure she has friends in high places. She'll find somebody to replace Megan Thee Stallion.
Well, look, I mean, we've had Cardi B tweeting about WWE before. So maybe I don't know how friendly she may or may not be with Mercedes, but, she's got a huge following on social media. Maybe she can link up with Cardi B and they can bring Cardi B into AEW.
Listen, Jeff Jarrett has close ties to Taylor Swift. Why not? Yeah, I mean, they got high profile names in big places over there, so why not?
She babysat for him many years ago, and that would be something.
It would be.
Although the Kelsey brothers, though, they've done stuff with WWE, so I don't know if there's maybe a connection there. I don't know. Politics going on. A lot of backstage politicking going on here. I feel
there is. Anytime Triple H and WWE can take that dagger and just kind of stab AEW. They'll take any chance they get. So not surprised by that. Speaking of theme music, this one really hit home with a lot of people. WWE reportedly looking to replace Def Rebel. Great. This is great news. For the past 3 years, Def Rebel's music has been used for SmackDown's theme. Supreme Madness served as the Blue Brand's theme for the past 3 years. That's the first time I figured out the name of that song. I didn't know the name of that song before that. Supreme Madness.
Indigo reminded me that we had Sexy Red on NXT not that long ago. Remember Sexy Red?
I would rather not, Jason. Thank you.
Remember that? No, but do you remember she was at Battleground?
Yes.
Which was at the UFC Apex, and unbeknownst to WWE, there had already been an incident that weekend where she got into like a brawl at the airport with somebody.
I remember. Didn't she have HBK twerk as well on a backstage skit?
Yes, which is something I never have to see again. But she had Shawn Michaels twerking on video, yes.
Oh, man. I don't know, man. You NXT folk. I don't know what you see in the show.
I thought when Triple H got more power, we would see Poppy back, but Poppy's been MIA. We haven't seen her.
Man, Triple H loves Poppy. Triple H had some bangers for those takeover shows. We had a couple of Slipknot songs. We had a couple of indie artists that really hit hard. I don't know what happened. I don't. But anyway, Def Rebel's song Supreme Madness served as SmackDown's theme for the last 3 years, and AC/DC as well from 2019 to 2022. This is coming from Corey Hayes of Pro Wrestling Nexus on Twitter via their Discord server. They dropped a piece of major news about Def Rebel, who right now is doing all of WWE's theme music for their active roster, sadly. The report noted that WWE now wants to collaborate with mainstream artists. However, this does not immediately rule Def Rebel out of the picture, as they're a Stanford-based promotion, which I didn't really know. And they want a diverse artist list, apparently. Furthermore, on Def Rebel status with WWE via Pro Wrestling Nexus, the report claimed that the music group looks forward to not renewing their contract with WWE once it concludes. Now, still the report is yet to be confirmed, but as of now, the promotion is set to continue its partnership with Def Rebel up until the end of 2024, while utilizing a diverse list of musical acts. Now, this is great news to anybody that watches the show, because I think if you're not in the bloodline, your music is fucking genuinely awful. They know how to write for a Samoan. Outside that, I mean,
well, the bloodline, and if you are a Joshi wrestler, because I feel like their music is pretty good too. Like whether it's EO or now Julia.
Wait, EO's is not Def Rebel.
No, but I'm saying, like, as far as talents or acts on TV that have actual decent music, they usually do a pretty good job when it comes to the Samoan stuff and the Joshi wrestlers. Everybody else is very hit or miss.
Yeah, Julia's got a pretty decent theme.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Yeah, so an Asuka and EO, so those tend to be pretty good. But everybody else, I mean, it's just a crapshoot. You know, they've done some good ones. It's not to say that everything that Def Rebel has done has been garbage. But you look at their batting average and just the overall music situation in WWE. I mean, tell me when I'm telling lies here, but I don't think it's ever been as bad as it is right now.
No, it's the most glaring negative to the overall WWE product. And I mean, AEW, you talk about one of their strengths. Mikey Ruckus is fucking phenomenal at what he does. Mm-hmm. He just reads the wrestler. He gets who they are, and he writes according to what they are, who they are, and he translates that so beautifully to his music. And WWE hasn't had that since CFO. And they did a great job. They had banger after banger after banger. Every song that they churned out for whoever they wrote for was just fucking unbelievable. Def Rebel, I don't know what happened here. I never heard of these people before, but they are leaving hopefully at the end of the year. And WWE apparently wants to start using legit artists. I don't know what that means. Are they going to license music? Are they going to actually get bands to write for WWE superstars and pay a one-set fee to get their music made? I don't know. But whatever the case is, just listen to LA Knight. LA Knight's music was performed by an actual rock band. I don't know who it was. It's a Def Rebel song that's translated to an actual musicians playing. It's not AI, because that's most of Def Rebel's music. But you can see and hear the differences between LA Knight's new theme and his old theme. So if they're like that and they want to go in that direction, I think that is a huge step forward, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, the first key, though, is to just move on from Def Rebel. I mean, for all we know, we end up with something worse, but it's hard to imagine that we end up in a worse situation than the one we're in now. And if they want to license actual real music, and they may not do that for everybody.
No.
But I would love to see it. You know, it's one of the things that really does make AEW feel different from WWE, is when Tony Khan goes out and he spends money, whether it's on a Final Countdown or, you know, Nigel came out to that Oasis song, you know, when he came back at Wembley. Or, you know, Orange Cassidy has had real music license for him. That, to me, is one of the big things that really separates the two companies. And you could argue, you know, is it worth it for him to be spending all that money? But as a fan, it just makes the entrances feel that much more epic.
I had someone mention this to me today. I did a little Twitter Spaces today on X. Someone mentioned to me, do you think Triple H will license the right to kill switch engage This Fire Burns for CM Punk to walk out to that theme during Bad Blood right before Hell in a Cell? Do you think that would be something that they would be interested in doing? Can you see that happening? Because I said if they want to really go and do what this report says and make a moment, I think the music is one of the biggest parts of making a moment like that even more special. I could absolutely see that being the case. Do you see that being the case here with WWE moving forward?
Well, why? Well, on that specific theme, why would he go back to that theme?
Just for one time. I don't know, because I guess it's kind of based off his promo. He says that he's willing to die in the Hell in a Cell, and he's going to make McIntyre bleed, and he's going to show how devilish he is, and whatever the case may be. And someone that raised this question to me said that song would fit that vibe perfectly based off Punk's promo Monday.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't see that happening. But I mean, as far as doing things like that and utilizing more music like that, I'm all for it. I think that would be fantastic. It's something I've been hoping they would do for a number of years, because there are just some wrestlers, that you come across a song or a new song comes out, and over the years I've thought like, oh, this would be a good fit for this guy.
Yeah.
But WWE would never do it because they have to own everything and they're not going to pay for it. If they are more open to it now, and I don't know if that's what that report means, because it's as I know just by looking into this kind of stuff, it's costly. Okay, when it comes to licensing music, I mean, WWE found out with Metallica when they had Enter Sandman for the One Night Stand show, and then they dubbed it out of every DVD and replay and video. You had to watch the original feed of that show. If you have a copy of it recorded, then you've got that song in there. But look at what they've done to the ECW library, on Peacock. It's completely butchered. If you go back and watch those old shows, that right there is a great example of the power of music. Because those old ECW shows, and again, you look back, how the hell did he get away with it? But I guess they just flew under the radar. But think of all the real music that Paul Heyman used. And that music was so important getting over so many of those talents, whether it was Sandman or Taz or Tommy Dreamer, up and down the list.
I could never watch Tommy Dreamer come out to anything but Man in the Box by Alice in Chains. I can't watch RVD come out to anything but Walk by Pantera. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. But that's a great example of how important music can be to the presentation. And I was never a huge ECW fan back when it was first airing, but every now and then if I go on there, and I look back at one of those old shows, I mean, they're so neutered and watered down. It's just not the same.
Nah, that's awful.
Yeah,
music is very important, guys. So hopefully WWE does get on track with that, and I hope it does mean more actual musicians licensing music and getting some real musicians to make these themes, because it's very important.
Yeah, Scott, I mean, Alice in Chains all over ECW.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that was that whole time period, though, that mid to late 90s time period, as far as that kind of music was.
Yep.
That's a pretty special period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
WWE, never mind the theme music. They need better theme music, but they're on the back end cutting back on live events in 2025, and ticket prices, sadly, could be increasing here. Now, TKO President Mark Shapiro spoke at the Goldman Sachs Communications and Technology Conference on Wednesday, and he spoke about continuing to cut back on marginally profitable live events. WWE's been running non-televised live events for decades, when the lifeblood of the company depended primarily on ticket sales. That has changed over the years, and WWE's primary revenue now comes from their media rights deals. Shapiro said at the conference that Vince McMahon liked to run live events as a way to expand the WWE brand into smaller cities and regions. Didn't Vince McMahon, Jason, run 2 or 3 different house shows on the same night and then have everybody go back the next day and do it all over again?
Vince McMahon used to run an A crew, a B crew, and a C crew in the same night sometimes. He would fan out all over the country and just run as many cities as he possibly could. And if you ran a particular city, you would get in the car. There wasn't a lot of flying like there is now. You'd get in the car. You could drive 6 hours just to get in, barely get any sleep, because the next night you'd be, halfway across the country and do it all over again. I mean, he worked those guys like fucking dogs. You look at that old touring schedule, like late 80s, early 90s, it was inhumane. It's crazy.
That's awful. No wonder.
And that was in those hard rings, too. Now, think about it. They were bumping around every night in those rings. They were like old boxing rings that were like concrete. So that coupled with the touring schedule, I said this on my show, no wonder, so many of them ended up, all crippled up or, hooked on pills and booze, among other reasons. I'm sure that didn't help. It was crazy. And Bret Hart once said they were treated like circus animals. And it's true.
What an awful way to live. We'll talk about Vince a little bit later, but Shapiro said WWE went from running 300 events in 2023 to 250 this year, and next year the plan is to cut back to close to 200, while still increasing company profits. It was not said if the close to 200 number includes NXT shows. Shapiro reiterated his beliefs that tickets to WWE shows are underpriced, and a sign that ticket prices will continue to increase as they cut back on the total number of shows next year. Some have said the reducing of live events is a detriment to some of the younger talent who needs reps on the road. However, WWE runs small shows around Florida, and the incoming talent trains at the Performance Center in Orlando. The reduced live event schedule will allow for wrestlers to spend more time at home with their family, which has been a top priority for the Paul Levesque era, as Randy Orton has been very public about that in recent months since he's been back on the road with WWE. Jason, the cutback of live events only means that ticket prices are going to go up, and this is already causing an uproar within the pro wrestling space, because to take a family of 4 or 5 is not going to be so much fun anymore with these increased ticket prices. And never mind the ticket aspect as far as prices are concerned. I look at it from a performer's point of view. A lot of the times the house shows are used to get those reps in, like the report said, or maybe try something that they want to bring to TV to see if it works or if it doesn't work, to give the talent there a little bit more time to work in front of a live audience without having restrictions to the live television broadcast, and just all these other liberties that they have in the palm of their hand to go out there and just have fun. You're not going to be able to do that as much anymore, especially for the younger kids to get the reps in. They do have the Performance Center, and it's state of the art, and they can go and do whatever they got to do anytime they want down there, but it's not the same as working in front of a live audience. I mean, the pros and cons to this are there, but at the end of the day, like I said, WWE is really trying to make the company performer friendly, put the performer first, have the performers spend more time at home with their families and their kids, and not really work them like they used to work back in the Vince era, which I know you talked about this as well. Could be a detriment as well, because no matter how people look at it, it's like, well, all right, well, they're not going to be working as much, but that could be the opposite as well if you want to really open that can of worms for a discussion as well.
Yeah, and look, a lot of wrestlers have talked about how the schedule now, as compared to the way it used to be, is not nearly as bad. But look, it's still a pretty brutal schedule. I mean, Jade Cargill was just interviewed, and she just talked about, like, it's a brutal schedule. It's just not something that she was prepared for. So imagine how, she would have felt 20 or 30 years ago, with that schedule. Probably would have chased her off. Why would she subject herself to that? You said there's pros and cons, and there really are. There's, I think, good and bad to this. And one of the things about house shows, it's been a while since I've been to one, but you hear this from other people also. House shows tend to be more fun. And they're fun in part because you don't have as much downtime. Like if you go to an episode, like a Raw taping, there's a lot of downtime because there's a lot of commercial breaks. So the lights may go down and you'll see a lot of video packages and a lot of advertisements, and you have these breaks between these segments because they're producing a television show. You don't have that issue with the live events. You go from one match to the next. The matches tend to be longer. And as you said, the performers, they can be a little looser. They can have a little more fun. There might be some more crowd interaction going on during the matches. And they could try things that may work. And it's like, oh, okay, that got a reaction. Maybe we'll use this on TV. Or you try something new and it doesn't work, and then the only people that have to know about it are the people in the building that night. So there are, a lot for the fans and the talent. not to mention the experience by being able to work on the road. I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot of positives there. But I think one element of this, and look, this is a TKO call. This is a business decision that they're making. You've got Mark Shapiro making these comments about how they're marginally profitable. Not that many years ago, the house shows were really not making them much money. I look at them, even though they are making them a little bit of money now, I kind of look at them as a loss leader in a way, because I do think that the value that they really bring, it may not be so obvious now, but I do think they do bring value, certainly long term. Right now, the WWE product is very hot. How long is that going to last? We don't know. But when you go to these different cities and you go to these different places, you're bringing the product to these markets. You're giving people a chance to get excited and pay for a ticket to go come and see the wrestlers, Cody Rhodes and Rhea Ripley and Roman Reigns. And what you're trying to do is build on that and at the very least maintain that level of popularity and enthusiasm. If you're going to really scale back on those shows, it's a risk. If you completely alienate certain markets and you're just not going to go here and here because they're not big enough, what effect might that have on the product? Might that eventually lead to a cooling effect? I'm sure that they're, weighing all of this, but I think that's a risk. But there's one other element to this. Even though it's a business decision that they're making, and this probably is above Triple H's head, Triple H, I think, is in a unique position to understand what it's like because he used to be a wrestler. Vince McMahon was not. So for Vince McMahon, it was just business. We have to run these shows. At the time, this is how they made a good chunk of their income, by ticket sales. How do they make most of their money now?
TV
Media
rights
deals. Yeah, it's all, billions of dollars, whether it's NBC Universal, Fox, Netflix, it's all about television and streaming. This was not the case, 25 years ago, 30 years ago. So it was very important to run these markets, and it was very important to sell tickets to these shows. And then you can judge who is drawing and who's not based on the house and based on how many tickets you sold. So that's all Vince McMahon would think of, right? We got to run these events, and we have to run. We could run 2 or 3 crews in one night. Triple H was on the road. He was working that schedule. He was working the grind. So he knows better than anybody what that's like. That's why you hear people like Randy Orton saying, man, it's nice to have a boss who I can go to and say, you know what? I need a little time off. And he's like, cool, no problem.
Yeah, CM Punk even mentioned that there's a little option on whatever they use
like
as
the
far as a
internal
corporate
app,
to request days off.
Yeah. Natty just came back, and Natty did an interview, and she said that she had a stigmatism in one of her eyes. She needed eye surgery and went to Triple H and said, look, I need to have this taken care of. And he's like, yeah, whatever. Like, take care of your eyes. Like, don't worry about it. And the comment that she made was, it's nice to have a boss that's actually human. Like, those were her words. Like, it's nice to have a boss who's an actual human being. Well, I look at it like, it's not even just that he's a human being, but like, he was one of the boys. Like, he was on the road working that schedule. He knows what that's like. He's uniquely suited to understand that and say, okay, you know what? Maybe we can scale back a little bit here. And it's a good thing to not run as many shows because we don't have to. But also, we're going to keep the talent happier and healthier if we don't run 300 freaking days a year. So there are pros and cons, I think, on the whole, especially for the talent. I think it's a good thing more than a bad thing. But, again, there's a little bit of both. I like the fact that, we don't have to hear stories about them running 300 days a year because that's just an insane schedule to run. These people have families, they have kids. Do they really need to be running Wichita? We got that show in Punxsutawney.
No, that was my next question to you. How much of it is a perception thing for WWE to really want to stick to the major cities because of how hot they are, and they want to give off the impression that they are WWE. There's no need for us to run fucking, bumblefuck middle of nowhere, Wisconsin.
You just pissed off all your fans in bumblefuck.
I'm sorry. You know what I mean.
Yeah, I definitely think that's part of it. And they also know they can raise their prices because right now it's a supply and demand issue, right? We'll run fewer shows, but we'll jack up our prices so long as people are willing to pay. Because they're doing house shows this year that are selling 8,000 tickets, 10,000 tickets, 12,000 tickets, right? We haven't heard about house shows selling that number of tickets since the Attitude Era, because at the peak of the Attitude Era, when Austin and Rock were at their hottest, they were doing that kind of house show business, right? And they're kind of doing that now too. So yeah, I think there is something to that perception issue. And as we've seen, WWE and TKO, they have no problem, jacking up the ticket prices because they know people are willing to pay for it.
It also goes to show you geeks out there, because Roman certainly ain't working fucking house shows, how over Cody Rhodes is and how marketable and valuable Cody Rhodes is as WWE champion. Because if 12,000 people, whatever the case may be, 8, 9, 10, 12,000 people coming out to see WWE, Cody Rhodes is at the top of that billing most of the time. So he's doing a fantastic job there. It also goes to show you how strategic, and I love this aspect. I'm not really into the business side of it, but I look at things like this, and it really makes me, wonder how the internal workings of WWE operate. Just look at Survivor Series, for example, Jason. We have Survivor Series, and they are nearly at a sellout. You and I discussed this during the sound check. WrestleTix noted that the show is already sold at almost 16,000 tickets, 15,100. They have 2,100 tickets left for Survivor Series. And the last time they were at that venue in Vancouver, British Columbia, they drew 13,157. So they're well past what they did in the last time they were there. And the cheapest available ticket for Survivor Series is $627 Canadian. Now, it's amazing to see how WWE chooses where they go, because it's almost as if they have zoned in on the most fucking starved pro wrestling cities in the market. Like, they're doing a lot of much more international than ever before. Cities that are getting first-time shows. Vancouver, British Columbia, I think the last time, what was it, Rock Bottom in your house in December 1998. 1998, right? I mean, that's a long fucking time, man. It's like, to see that and where they pick and choose where they go, no wonder they're fucking selling out. I mean, 1998, now 2024, of course people are going to show up. Hey, man, look at it. We got WWE here. Let's go. And then you tag Survivor Series War Games to it. Of course it's going to be a fucking big night out.
Yeah, these poor Vancouver folks, like, over the years, there's always that one person in the crowd. Like, for the longest time, they always had that one sign that said, bring Vancouver a WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Or bring WrestleMania to Vancouver. And I always looked at that and go, you ain't getting a WrestleMania, because if they go back to Canada, they're going to go to Toronto, right? I don't know, maybe Montreal, but yeah, you're not getting a WrestleMania, but they're getting a Survivor Series. So, that's traditionally one of the big four.
Yeah, it's crazy. And WWE's hot, guys. It's going to remain hot, and next year is not going to be any different. We got The Rock coming back very soon, hopefully. John Cena's retirement next year. So if you think the ticket prices are expensive now, they ain't going anywhere next year.
Oh, my God. I mean, they're going to clean up with that Cena tour. Are you kidding me?
Absolutely. It's going to be making money all over the place for WWE, man. They're going to be fucking laughing to the bank, and people are going to eat it up. And then they'll hype biggest gate of all time. That's great, man. We spent fucking $6,000 to take the entire family out. That's not including concessions to go watch WWE, man. I mean, that's ridiculous. Really, that's fucking ridiculous. But people are going to do it.
Look, people have always complained, like going to a baseball game at Yankee Stadium or Shea Stadium, now Citi Field. If you were to take a family to a baseball game, family of 4, family of 5, like, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. So that's why, when I was doing public relations work for one of the local minor league baseball teams, that was one of our selling points, which was, you don't have to break the bank to go to a Yankee game. If you want to just go out to a baseball game in New York, we got right here in Brooklyn, right on the water, right? Beautiful scenery. You got the Cyclone roller coaster and all the amusements in the background. You could literally go to a minor league baseball game and pay, less than half, for that same number of tickets. Because pro sports, you want to take the family to a game, basketball, football, baseball, it's going to cost you a fortune, and wrestling is no different. Wrestling's only now catching up because WWE is so hot.
Yeah, and like we said, John Cena's next year, his retirement tour. Saturday night's main event is coming back to NBC on December 14th, 8 p.m. It's going to be a 2-hour special From Long Island, New York, on the island at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. This is the site of the first ever Saturday Night's Main Event back in 1985, if you guys want to go back into the Wayback Machine. This was reported by WrestleVotes today. WWE confirmed it, and they are doing it for the first time since 2008. Specials ran on NBC from 1985 to 1991 in place of Saturday Night Live. In 1992, WWE aired the special on Fox before it disappeared. WWE brought it back in prime time in March of 2006 when it returned to NBCU for Raw on USA Network. That lasted until August 2008. I think the thing that got everybody, Jason, was the beautiful video package that WWE put up today. And the original theme for Saturday Night's Main Event was heard in the video package, Obsession by Animotion, which was used from May 11th, 1985 to January 2nd, 1988. And they had two other themes besides that one. Saturday Night's Main Event by Douglas Grammer, that was used from 88 to 91. And then POD's Boom, which was used from March 2006 to August 2008, which I wasn't a fan of POD at all. But
No.
That was...
Well, maybe we'll get Megan Thee Stallion for the Saturday Night's Main Event.
Don't jinx us. But Animotion's Obsession, I mean, I love this, man, just for the simple fact that, Saturday Night's Main Event holds... something very near and dear to our hearts growing up in that time period, seeing that, how big of a show it was back then. Is it going to translate that way in 2024? What is old is now new again. How is WWE going to put a modernized spin on it? I love what they've done already with the video package, with the, the little glimpses of Coco Beware and Ravishing Rick Rude, and obviously all the old timers in the video package.
Yeah, Honky Tonk Man.
Honky Tonk Man. I love this, man. This is great. More content for us on top of it, which is always a great thing. Always a great thing to spend time with you guys. But those four specials in between a pay-per-view, man, we mentioned this last week. Survivor Series is the last pay-per-view for WWE in the entire year. We don't get another PLE until the Royal Rumble, and that's the first week of February this coming year in 2025. So that's going to fit nicely after Survivor Series going on into January, and then that first week of February we get the Royal Rumble, man. I love this.
Yeah, I mean, so... timing-wise, we have Survivor Series at the end of November. 2 weeks later, we'll have Saturday Night's Main Event. And I'm sure they're going to load that show up and have a big main event like they did on the first SmackDown on USA last week. At least have that one big main event. And then, even though we don't have a PLE in January 6th, we have the first Raw on Netflix, which is also, I'm sure, going to be a big deal. So they pretty much have December and January, I think, covered in that regard. And then that leads into the Rumble at the beginning of February. I know for those wondering, because they're running the Coliseum for this show, they are still running Madison Square Garden 2 weeks later. Because every year, post-Christmas, they always have that post-Christmas MSG house show. That will be no different this year, so they are still running Madison Square Garden. And here's the thing, I mean, it's a big deal because they're on one of the biggest broadcast networks in the country. This is airing on NBC. And it will simulcast on Peacock as well. So they're trying to maximize the audience here. As somebody who grew up on Saturday Night's Main Event, obviously there's a great feeling of nostalgia for me. For a newer fan, it's just another big event on the schedule on a major broadcast network. So no matter what kind of fan you are, if you're a newer fan, if you're an older fan, I think that it'll be a big deal. We'll see what kind of matches, if they have like a big title match or what they put on that show. But yeah, they have 4 of them, so you spread them out, and it can be a nice buffer, between PLEs when you have a little more time than usual between these shows. I think it could be a good bridge, from one show to the next. I'm just hoping that because we heard it in the retro package, that's an indication that they may use that song again for the actual show. Because to me, it would be such a tease to use it in the ad, and then we tune in, and it's, fucking, I don't know, Taylor Swift or something. Like, come on, what are we doing here?
Last time they did that was when Drew McIntyre wrestled Roman Reigns in Cardiff, and he came out to Broken Dreams for like 30 seconds, and then it hit his actual theme music. I'm like, you fucking motherfucker. Really? Why would you do that to me?
Yeah. Well, here's another thing, and people were mentioning this, and I was thinking the same thing. We just heard recently from Jesse Ventura that he's on the verge of signing a Legends deal with WWE. Now, he has said no to commentary. I think he told that to Chris Van Vliet. But I wouldn't mind hearing him again for the first episode, just for, I mean, we can't get Vince, obviously, but for nostalgia's sake, just get him on there for like one match to do commentary, right? Because I'm pretty sure Jesse, I mean, I would imagine, I don't remember if it was Vince and Jesse on the very first one. It must have been. So if he's back in the fold now, I don't know, maybe it wouldn't surprise me if that was part of the discussions that they've been having. Because obviously they knew about this. They've been planning this for a while. I just think it would be so appropriate to get him some kind of cameo on that first show at the Coliseum. It would just be perfect.
Yeah, I would love that. I mean, I was a big Jesse Ventura guy. He still got that iconic voice even in his 70s now. I'd love to see it. So, you said, you're probably correct. They had this planned well in advance. They knew this was coming. Jesse Ventura lining up and signing a Legends deal was, something that was also in the pipeline. We heard that for a little bit, and it actually happened this past month. I'd love to see it. So if they want to do that, thumbs up from me. I'm all on board.
Yeah.
WWE, finally. We have a home for the Motor City Machine Guns. They are landing in WWE, and it will not be with Tony Khan and AEW. So this also has caused several to melt down on social media. And earlier this week, Pro Wrestling Nexus had reported that Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley, and Chris Sabin were headed to WWE and will start in NXT. Fightful reported last week and confirmed this, that they are officially signed with WWE. Now, questions have swirled about their status for months, but details were very few and far between. Outside of AEW sources indicating months ago that the duo hadn't been signed and weren't planned for the company, there were some creative pitches there, but it did not end up happening. I know a lot of people, Jason, before the tag team gauntlet match on Wednesday's Dynamite last week, everybody was like, there's surprises. Tony's got surprises. What if one of the surprises is Motor City Machine Guns? So we watched, and we were disappointed. Nothing really happened in that match, and the Motor City Machine Guns didn't show up. And I said on my stream with Jesse on Wednesday, yeah, they're going to WWE. I think if they didn't show up on Wednesday, that was pretty much a done deal there. But again, I know you don't pay attention to it, but I know you've seen some of it. The social media discourse about them going to NXT just had some people melting down. And I didn't really understand why, because of two very specific actually three very specific reasons. I always remember AJ Styles. Yes, he was talking about a lot of indie talent, but AJ Styles himself said it probably would have benefited him before coming to WWE and debuting in the Royal Rumble the way that he did, to go to NXT, learn the system for at least 6 months, because me working in TNA and me working in New Japan, the way that they do things in WWE is nothing like anywhere else I've worked. And obviously, besides AJ Styles, if he says it, it's legitimately, true. You're not going to say no to AJ Styles. So if he feels it, you're going to believe AJ. The other thing is, who's to say that Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley didn't request to go to NXT? And people are making it out to be like they're going to spend their entire WWE life down in NXT, and then goodbye. We're not going to bring you up to the main roster. I mean, you're going to go from working with Tony D'Angelo and the family to right into the performance center, and then you're going to begin coaching. So thank you guys for your contributions. Goodbye. It's not going to happen. They'll probably be down there for 6 months at least, and then get brought to the main roster and do what they got to do with some of the bigger tag teams on the main roster. Third, how many fucking talents from the Indies and New Japan and TNA and wherever else, Ring of Honor, came from the Indies to join WWE, and nobody made us think about it? Maybe I didn't pay attention to it, but Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Gunther, Pete Dunne, fucking Asuka, Io. I mean, the list. I'll be here all fucking night with you if we go over the entire list, man. What the fuck is the problem with these people, man? Do they not know? This was ridiculous.
Yeah, there were a few people I saw who were, kind of mocking the idea of them going there because of their age and because of their experience, and I'm just like, these people just, they're not that bright. So I don't really put much stock into that criticism, because, is this new? Like you just outlined, this has been going on now for years. But here's another reason that you didn't mention, and this may have been, I look at this as one of the bigger reasons, and I don't see this as a downgrade. They're moving to broadcast television.
Yeah.
They're moving to the CW. This is a very important move for WWE. They're making whatever it is, $35 million supposedly on this CW deal. So moving NXT to CW is going to give that brand the most exposure that it's ever had. It didn't have this kind of exposure on the network, and it doesn't even have this level of exposure on USA Network. So this is a big deal. And that's why you see CM Punk is going to be on that first show. Randy Orton is going to be on that second show. I am sure there are going to be other surprises and other main roster talents who are going to appear. And we're going to maybe see some debuts, including the Machine Guns. They may not be the only ones. The Machine Guns going to NXT to really help out and be among the top names on that brand in this debut on the CW. I don't see how that can be looked at as anything but a positive, right? That's a big deal. It's a big spot for them to be in. And as you said, they're not going to be down there forever. If we're still sitting here in a year and they're still floundering down there, I would question that. And I'd say the same thing about the Lucha Bros, who I have every belief are probably coming into WWE. I don't know if they will go to NXT. Maybe they'll bypass NXT. I would think that they too might, land there and benefit from being there for a little while. And it's just a different time now. I might have been one of those people several years ago who would have said, what the hell are you sending these guys there? In fact, I'm sure I said that when it came to Balor and people like that.
Samoa Joe.
Samoa Joe had a unique deal, though. If you remember when they first signed him, he was still able to work some indie dates.
Yeah.
He had a weird deal. That was so fucked up because the plan for him, they were never even going to call him to the main roster. And I remember hearing that, and I'm like, why wouldn't you want him on the main roster? And I'm like, I guarantee he was going to get over. And sure enough, that's what happened. He got over, and they signed him to a full-time deal, and eventually he made it to the main roster. But yeah, Joe is another example of that. So the way that they have structured things now, and the way that they have NXT, on the CW and this big deal they worked out, I think it's perfectly fine. And I think that it's entirely possible that it was their choice. And maybe they were like, yeah, you know what? Why don't we start out here? Whatever their motivations may have been. We don't know. But no, I didn't melt down the way that some people did, like the Wicked Witch, and melt into a puddle on the ground. I think it's going to be perfectly fine. I think that in Chicago, when they come out there, if they save them as a surprise, because they may not, they may announce them in advance. They may show up next week on NXT and then get them in their first match on that show. I would save them as a surprise because I think that even though they're new to this audience, I think that when they come out, they'll probably get a nice reaction. Now, here's the interesting thing. It sounds like they're going to keep their name, but not their music. I know there were some people who were very upset at the idea that they would not keep their TNA music. It surprises me, if only because WWE is working with TNA, that you would think that wouldn't be an issue. But from what I read, they may be getting a Def Rebel special. So we will have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, that's pretty disappointing. I was actually a fan of their TNA theme, but WWE's got a WWE it up. When new talent comes in, I guess that was like a give and take. We'll let you keep your name, but we got to change your music. I'm like, all right, whatever.
Yeah. There was a name.
I'd rather them keep the name instead of keep the music, to be quite honest. Who the fuck knows what they'd be named?
Well, I was going to say, there was a time when they would not be keeping that name.
No.
No. And like, what would they call them? I just think back to War Machine, and when they came in and it was the fucking Viking Experience. So believe me, it could have been a lot worse for these guys, and I'd much rather them keep the name than their music.
They went from doing the devil horns in the ring on NXT with fans chanting war, war, and then all of a sudden they get turned into a fucking amusement park ride. Jesus Christ, Vince.
The Viking Experience. Never live that down.
Oh man!
Never.
A little bit of breaking news here. I guess not really, but Randy Orton tweeted out that he will be wrestling Javon Evans on that St. Louis NXT show October 8th. So that is his match. There you go.
Well, they seem very high on Javon Evans.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had a real breakout year this year. So that's not surprising, and that's great for him.
Yeah.
Getting in the ring with Randy Orton. I think Javon Evans. How old is he? Like 22? I mean, he's very young.
Yeah, around that time, yeah.
21.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's going to be a big 2 weeks, guys. We will be covering that. I know Jason's going to be covering, and I'm going to be covering those 2 weeks, and we'll keep you updated on what happens with TNT those weeks, because October is just going to be super, super busy. A lot of big shows happening, so we will keep you updated the best we can. Do you want to get into a little bit of Monday night? Because I know we did SmackDown. We got a couple of big happenings happening on Monday Night Raw. Let's get into that for a little bit. CM Punk and Drew McIntyre's promo on Monday Night Raw. Actually, Punk's promo, not McIntyre. He wasn't there. He dressed Drew McIntyre in a Hell in a Cell. What did you make of CM Punk's promo and the vibe and the way it was presented? Him coming out very, he didn't really cut an overly angry promo. It was very stoic. Yeah, very, very stoic, very direct. He did say he's going to make McIntyre bleed. He did say that he's willing to die to end this inside Hell in the Cell. What did you take away from that promo? What'd you think?
I thought that he struck the perfect tone. I thought that his demeanor, I mean, think about everything that he's been through up until this point. He should come out there and have, a pissed off expression on his face and be willing to come out there and say, look, I'm willing to lay it all on the line here. I'm willing to die inside the cell if that's what it takes. When you invoke the name of my wife and my dog and everything that you've done to me, all the attacks and everything, this is the blow off. Like, this is what Hell in a Cell should be. This is what Hell in a Cell originally was conceived to be, right? It was locking two guys inside the cell who have been feuding, who absolutely hate each other and are trying to resolve their issues once and for all. So I think it fit the right vibe. The fact that he specifically said that I'm going to make you bleed tells me that he wouldn't be saying that unless we were going to get some blood inside Hell in a Cell. Why else would you have him go out there and say that? And if ever there was a time to use blood, Hell in a Cell is the perfect time, is the perfect match for it.
Yeah.
And I think that this feud, this being the final match, it has to be the final match. If they were going to have a little bit of blood in there, then I think this would warrant that. So I thought it was great. It was very direct. He got very up close into the camera. It was almost like, dude, back up a little bit. And because he was talking directly to Drew, and he made it very clear, I'm going to drag you down to hell, and I'm going to finish you off once and for all. So I thought it was exactly what it needed to be. So I liked it.
Yeah, this is going to be a great match. I can't wait for this. There definitely needs to be color. I did say, now clearly, I know when people think blood and violence, Hell in a Cell, and the return to the match being its old self. No, we're not going to go Hangman and Swerve vile, but I did mention, Jason, on my Monday Night Raw post show last night, if I was to choose one Punk match to kind of compare to what this should be on October 5th, I would say I think WWE can maybe push the envelope to this being close to what MJF and CM Punk did in the dog collar match that they had on AEW. That type of violence. I don't know if it's going to be that bloody, but it definitely needs to be bloody in some way, shape, or form. But I would say around that MJF CM Punk dog collar match is what we need to go for.
Yeah, I mean, it should be. They're not going to let it go that far.
No, I know.
I just can't imagine they're going to let it go that far. Look, we had blood in the cage match on SmackDown last week.
A little bit,
about 5 minutes, and then it was gone.
I wonder who. Was it Solo Sikoa? No.
No, of course. It's a Rhodes. Rhodes is his last name.
The whole family fucking loves bleeding, man. It's fucking ridiculous.
He wakes up in the morning, his fucking pillowcase is drenched in blood. Are you kidding me? I would imagine we'll get more than what we saw there. But yeah, I mean, look, they're not going to take it to that extreme. But if ever there was a match or a circumstance or a feud that would warrant that, then this is it. And that was a great match that Punk and MJF had. That was a blood feud. This is the closest thing that Punk has had to that so far in WWE. So I'm pretty confident we'll get something like that, or else he wouldn't have brought that up. As the babyface, you don't make that kind of promise unless you're going to deliver. So I would expect at least one of them to bleed, and that really should be the match to close out the show. Obviously, it's going to be that or Roman and Cody, their tag team match, which I think could open the show. But a lot of it depends on what the outcome of that match is going to be. What's the finish? Is there some big thing going down at the end of that tag team match? Then I could see them maybe wanting to close with it, but the match that should headline is Hell in a Cell.
Do you think Drew McIntyre is going to go off the cell like he did in 2020 against Randy Orton?
Drew McIntyre went off the cell in 2020 against Randy Orton?
He took the HBK bump off the side of the cage like he did in 1997.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. It's weird how that bump feels, it just pales in comparison these days, doesn't it? Because we've seen so much, like...
Well, the tables aren't the same. That makes the whole difference.
No, but I just mean like off the side. Like I wouldn't want to take that bump, but I'm just saying all the crazy shit that we've seen, like in both companies since then, because that was the first Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
It just, that almost seems anticlimactic now. I think Mick Foley really ruined it for everybody, honestly, but just like all the bumps that he took, everything else by comparison is just very tame. But yeah, I forgot about that. Now, did they make a claim on TV? I believe they said that McIntyre is, I believe he has yet to win. He's winless in Hell in a Cell matches. Or was it
I
Punk?
believe.
I think they said McIntyre.
I think it was McIntyre. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that there's a decent chance McIntyre win?
No.
I mean, I can't imagine.
No, I think Punk wins and Punk gets Gunther at Survivor Series. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean.
And no red
I
cell.
would,
Yes, 205 live in the chat. No red cell. Absolutely.
Well, they already got rid of it. The red cell, they junked the red cell before Cody and Seth. So that was a Triple H thing. Thank you, Triple H. Yeah, the red cell was an eyesore. And honestly, look, for all the talk about how finally Hell in a Cell getting back to the way it used to be, the last 2 Hell in a Cell matches were excellent.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I take that back. Cody and Seth was excellent. And I was thinking of Seth and Edge. I was not as big of a fan of Edge and Balor. But those other 2 I thought were tremendous. So it's not like we haven't had a great Hell in a Cell match in 15 years. There have been some real bangers. But again, this feud is just this stipulation. It's tailor-made for this feud.
Yeah, it's amazing how that worked out. I enjoyed Balor and Edge at Extreme Rules the year prior when they kind of bullied Beth Phoenix and they did the concerto at the belt. I thought that was a lot better than what they did at WrestleMania.
Yeah, the I Quit match.
Yeah,
the I Quit match. Yeah. Yeah, I just didn't like their cell match. Not that it was like a terrible match. I just was like, eh.
Yeah.
I just wasn't really that big of a fan of it. But those other 2 that I mentioned, I thought were tremendous.
Yeah. Braun Breaker, speaking of tremendous, absolutely one of the best things about WWE is Braun Breaker, current Intercontinental Champion, had a stare down with Jey Uso last night on Monday Night Raw. I thought this was a very good segment. A lot of people tend to think Jey Uso is not a good promo, but when he was with his brother Jimmy, usually you stop what you're doing to listen to them speak because they are very believable. Jey Uso is a legit star, one of the biggest baby faces in the entire company. And I'm excited for this match, which is happening next week on Monday Night Raw, more than likely in the main event for the IC title. What'd you make of this, Jason? And do you feel, because I know you mentioned last week that it's not a complete blow away, Braun Breaker's going to win this thing, that Jey Uso has a sliver of a chance here potentially. How you feeling coming out of this promo last night? And do you feel that same way? Could WWE give Jey Uso a shock win over Braun Breaker and win the Intercontinental title?
Yes, I think they can. I'm not predicting that. I think Braun is going to retain. But it would not shock me if, because some people it might shock them. Like, what do you mean? They just put the title on Braun. Braun's the one they're building for the future. He can't lose it until, WrestleMania or something. There are people who I think would be shocked by that. I would not be, because Jey is one of the most over stars in the entire company. And I feel like you can only beat him in big matches like this so many times before people just kind of shrug and go, all right, you know what? Like, what are we doing here? Because he's already wrestled for the World Heavyweight Championship. He lost Money in the Bank. He lost. He's had countless other matches, right, with Roman. SummerSlam last year, he wrestled for the championship. He didn't win that either. King of the Ring, he didn't move beyond, I think, the semifinals or quarterfinals, whatever it was. So at what point does he actually win? He's going around on TV saying, I'm going to be a singles champion in this company. If he doesn't win here, and then he does get worked into the bloodline story, I don't, like, what singles title is he winning at that point? So it's almost like it's now or never. This period here, before he gets worked back into the family stuff, is really his chance to follow through on that promise and win a singles title. Would it kill Braun Breaker if he got beat by one of the most popular stars on Raw and then won the belt back a month later? Like in Saudi Arabia? No, it really wouldn't. So I'm gonna say Braun retains, but just don't be surprised if they, kind of swerve everybody who thinks that, he's not gonna win, and then he does. What I was thinking is also the possibility that maybe he doesn't win the title, but maybe Braun just, is attacking him when the match is over. And this is if they are going to do Bloodline versus Bloodline in November. How do we get there, right? How do we get Jey involved? Would Jimmy come out? Would Jimmy come out? So he shows up not on SmackDown, but he shows up on Raw to try to come to his brother's aid. Maybe his brother isn't even all that enthusiastic about, like, what are you doing here? But could it be that when Jimmy comes back, it's going to be to try to convince Jey, like, hey, we need you. Like, there's some stuff going on over here, and, we need you, bro. And is that the way they go with it? Do you think that's a possibility?
I think that is a big possibility. In fact, now that you bring that to the table, which I didn't really think about, I think that would be better to introduce Jimmy alongside Jay, because it would make Jimmy look equal. If you bring him out and you debut him or return him with Roman, I mean, are people going to really care about Jimmy? I mean, yeah, sure, Jimmy's back, but I think he would be overshadowed by Cody and Roman and everything else that's going on with the bloodline. I think that's a nice way to subtly introduce him back to the television.
Yeah. Have him, instead of just showing back up on SmackDown on day one, he tries to mend fences with his brother. And that's how you can try to work Jimmy back into the story and get the Usos back together.
I like it. I feel the same way as you. I think Braun Breaker's going to retain. I think it would be lazy to take the belt off Braun Breaker right now to put it on Jay, only to put it back on Braun Breaker. I think we just keep Braun Breaker with this momentum. He's really ascending at a rapid pace that is a beautiful thing to see. And I honestly feel like if they don't even do what you mentioned here with Jimmy coming back and kind of telling Jay, hey, man, we need you on this side. Let's cut this shit out. I think Jay battling alongside Priest and Rhea Ripley against the Judgment Day and teaming with Sami, because Sami's not going to beat Gunther, to win the tag team championships, I think is a natural progression for both of them, because they seemingly dropped that out of nowhere. And I do think that they would eventually go back to that. So I think that's probably the way that they're going to go. If Jay does not join his family and they do potentially what you mentioned earlier in the show, where they do KO and Randy and Cody with Roman against the Bloodline for War Games. Again, I don't know. I mean, this is the great thing about WWE nowadays. You don't know where the fuck they're going to go, and there's so many different roads that they could take. But any one of those sounds good to me. But I think Jay and Sami, I predicted, is the way that they're going to go. I don't know how you feel about them winning the tag team titles.
Well, they already teased it. So at one point, it was seemingly the plan. I don't know if they just changed their mind or they just said, let's put that on the back burner and we'll come back to it. Who else is going to beat Balor and McDonough? Is there another obvious team right now that is kind of ready to, I mean, unless they debut the Lucha Bros right to the main roster and they want to throw them right into the fire.
In the LWO you go, pal.
Well, I mean, it would kind of fit, wouldn't it? Because the Judgment Day and the LWO have been feuding. So
sadly, yes. Please, nobody listening, man. Don't do it, please.
Well, yeah, I actually could see that. So no, I think that probably is what's going to end up happening as far as Sami and Jay. You know, because Sami's not going to beat Gunther a second time. You know, they're building that whole story around, I beat you once, I could do it again. As Ludwig Kaiser said last night, very rarely, if ever, does lightning strike twice. Yeah. So I don't see that happen.
Speaking of tag teams, the New Day potentially teasing a split on Monday last night. I don't know how you felt about the ending of that match, where it just got really chaotic at the end. Kofi does the trust dive off the top rope. Referee goes out there to kind of reel everybody in and send all these outcasts to the back, and Kofi's got to get back in the ring, and Kofi, is doing what he's got to do on the outside, but at the same time, Xavier's got the pin, he's got the visual pin, and the title's won, and then all of a sudden, the tides quickly change, and the Judgment Day end up retaining the titles, and Kofi is blamed for Xavier taking the loss last night. I thought they did a great job of kind of creating this environment where it was very chaotic, and it made you kind of feel bad for Xavier Woods, because he's like, I want to win. I want to get back on the right track. We got to win the tag team titles. He had them won. You saw it. And then they lost. I don't know how you felt about it, but I thought what they did last night with the New Day and potentially splitting them was very good. I enjoyed it.
Odyssey who?
Who? No.
Odyssey who?
I don't remember.
Whatever happened to that guy? Yeah, I mean they recalibrated pretty well. Yeah. I would say from whatever was the direction there. I like what they did. This is the most interested I've been in New Day in years. Yeah. And now I didn't realize until a couple of weeks ago that November is going to be their 10-year anniversary. So I cannot envision a scenario where they split before they get to that anniversary. And I also can't imagine that this does not eventually lead to Big E, coming back to TV to try to help these two get back on the same page.
Said the same thing last night. Great minds think alike.
He was invoked. Yeah. He was invoked. I mean, his name was invoked last night. Kofi said it. Like, I'm looking at different people who could help us out because we don't have Big E. And then Woods was offended by that and said, okay, so what you're saying is that without E, we can't fight our own battles. So the fact that he's been mentioned and name dropped right there, and he was before too, by the way, when Odyssey Jones was in there for that brief period, and Woods was like, You trying to replace E? And he's like, no, 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 no. There's just too many mentions of Big E for him not to be involved in this in some way, and just try to get them back, both on the same page. Ultimately, I don't know if they follow through on the actual split, or if the story is just that they're going to continue to tease it and make you think it's going to happen, but then like the anniversary comes and we just get the big like kumbaya reunion with all three, embracing in the middle of the ring.
I mentioned this last night in passing because I was talking about WrestleMania and kind of mapping out WrestleMania. Do you think that Kofi and Xavier are each other's WrestleMania opponent for WrestleMania 41, potentially?
I didn't really see it that way. Possible, but that would indicate that. So you think that they will follow through on an actual split?
I think so. I don't know where it goes. That's the only problem that I'm really held up on. Like I don't really know where Xavier goes. He ain't winning the IC title. He ain't winning the world title. What does he do? And I feel like, I don't know if you picked up on this. They were wearing different attires last night. Kofi was wearing green, and then Xavier was wearing black and white. So I don't know if that means anything, if that's going to play into anything. But I could see them dragging it to WrestleMania and giving us a WrestleMania moment like you mentioned. I mentioned this last night. Big E being that kind of force to bring them back together. Maybe that's their WrestleMania moment. I don't know.
I just don't know that people are going to really want to see that. I don't know that people are going to want to. How into Kofi against Woods are people going to be? Like, we've run into this before, like brother against brother, Matt and Jack. Like, you can find different examples of this. Like, is that something people are going to want to see and that they're going to really react to and get behind if you do Woods against Kofi? I don't know that I see that as the WrestleMania match, because I'm not convinced that they're actually going to follow through on the turn. I made a comment last night, kind of tongue-in-cheek, because I don't actually expect it to happen. Unfortunately, I just don't think we're going to see Big E back in the ring. But can you imagine, like, it's the 10-year anniversary. Maybe they even do a segment like at Survivor Series. And it's like the New Day Summit, and he's trying to broker a peace between these two. And, they have it out on the mic back and forth. And then finally at the end, like, everyone's back on the same page and the New Day is back together. And then Big E just fucking destroys the two of them. Like, fuck you guys. Like, he just annihilates them. And it's like he's secretly been medically cleared and now he's back. Like, what a moment that would be. But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. So, no, I think that the teasing of a split is something that is very intriguing, because they've just been maintaining the status quo for so long. It's just been fucking boring. Yeah. And it doesn't help that they don't really have people to work with.
No.
The tag team division on the main roster right now, certainly broken up between the two brands individually, it's just not that strong. So what do? You look within and you create a story within one team. And that's what they're doing with these two. They don't have anybody to really feud with, so they're going to feud with each other. And honestly, that's the most interesting thing they can be doing. And even better, they did it without having to involve Karrion Kross in the Final Testament last night. So Kross is the one who's responsible for lighting the fuse, and kind of instigating the whole thing. But they didn't need the Final Testament. I don't know if they're going to continue to feud. I have no interest in seeing them continue to feud. But I'm curious to see how far they actually take this. But they're not going to pull the trigger on anything before the 10-year anniversary. I just can't imagine that.
Well, I am with you. I think the New Day is a little bit more interesting now than they have been, I would say, in the last 2 years. So there is something brewing there. We'll see if it actually does lead to a split. Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed, they wanted to split the ring last night. We did see the ring at least compromised, at least the top turnbuckle anyway. When Bronson Reed hit the
whole building was compromised.
I know. It's a beautiful thing. Don't get me wrong, but they're teasing us little by little. The top rope did come off its hinges last night, and Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed, at least for 4 minutes, caused total destruction. There was an overturned golf cart. They blasted through a sheetrock wall backstage, and toolboxes and whatever fucking was hanging in the ceiling fell down. It was like this. I don't know what the fuck was going on.
What are you talking about? For the last spot?
Yeah.
You know what that was the most ridiculous part of the entire
It legitimately looked like, bro. It legitimately looked like somebody was above the fucking camera. Who's like,
that's exactly what it was.
Oh, let me drop these toolboxes. Oh, guys.
That's exactly what it was. So like everything up until that point was like really cool and really badass. And then they go through this fucking wall. And the first thing I thought of was Chris Jericho with the forklift when he killed Samoa Joe and he drove through that fake wall, and it just looked so stupid. And because they was like, oh my God, Joe is dead. I'm like, it's like a paper mache wall. I go, I think he's gonna be okay. So they do the same thing here, but the thing that got me was that there was a delay. So like they go through the wall, and it felt like 2 seconds went by, and then like I could just picture people like, okay, quick, drop them. And it's like pots and pans and shit are being like dropped on the floor. I'm like, okay, now this is just goofy now. Like, what are we doing here? So yeah, that was I didn't like that last part, but everything up until then I thought was great.
Do you see these guys? I know we mentioned this during the sound check as well. Listen, I know Triple H has his methods of 5 matches, 6 matches tops of these PLEs. If he wants to push it to a 7-match PLE in Atlanta for Bad Blood, I would love to see it. Clearly, we know Jey Uso and Braun Breaker as of right now is not taking place for the IC title. It's taking place next week. Do you think that we may get Bronson Reed and Braun Strowman on the pay-per-view, or are they saving that for a Monday night?
I think they're saving that for a Monday night.
Yeah. Last monster standing or last man standing or something like that.
Well, we're gonna have to get an actual match at some point between them, right? We haven't really had much of a match so far. We had no match last night, and the first match ended. Technically, the match itself, in the ring, didn't go longer than 2 minutes before it spilled outside. So, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think like a stipulation that would really, maybe last man standing. Yeah. Although we just had a last man standing match on NXT. I don't know if that matters. I kind of wish they didn't do that because I thought that was very goofy. Having a last man standing match with Trick Williams and Pete Dunne, like what have they done to warrant a last man standing match? Like
I don't know. You guys told me to go watch that show last week. You know what I did an hour in? I was fucking passed out. Thanks, guys.
And the match itself, I'm not like the match itself was fine, but like my first thought was like, okay, I've been trying to pay attention to like how we got to this point, even though I'm not paying attention to every single thing they do on NXT anymore week to week. But like, you save a last man standing type stipulation for like a feud that warrants it, like, and that didn't warrant it, but like this would. So a last man standing with Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed, which they could still do. That to me would be the stipulation. I think that would make the most sense. But if they're not doing the Intercontinental title match on that show, they're not doing this match on that show.
Yeah, I think we're stuck with 6 matches. Sorry, guys. What happens with Seth Rollins when he comes back? Now, we don't know. We haven't heard a thing about Seth Rollins and when he potentially could be back. When he does get back, clearly he's got a built-in feud with Bronson Reed. How are you feeling about when Rollins gets back and Bronson Reed's been fucking a superstar in the last month and a half? Are you giving Bronson Reed that win over Seth Rollins when he gets back?
In the first match, I am, yes.
Okay, good. Okay.
When I thought Rollins was going to be back in time for Bash in Berlin, I thought the same thing. I said, you've got to give Bronson Reed the first win. And they've only been building him up more as a monster in the time since then. So you got to do 2 or 3 matches out of it. I love this push that he's been getting. We know that Rollins is going to eventually be prepped for a feud with Punk, so I get it. He's got to win in the end. But that first match you do, I think Reed needs to make a statement. You do that by giving him the win, and then eventually Rollins can get that win back. But yeah, I think it's very important for his credibility that he be able to go over on a major star like that.
It's kind of concerning. We haven't heard anything about Seth Rollins. We don't know how serious the injury was. If he came back too quickly, is he going to be back before Survivor Series? Maybe back in time for Saturday night's main event? Maybe we get this match on the debut episode of Raw on Netflix. I have no fucking clue.
Well, he's on the poster. I think he's on the poster that they released for Saturday night's main event. So I would think they expect him back by then. But I do see, because I was wondering what the big announcement was going to be from CM Punk tonight. And just to update everybody, I do see, because my guess was he was going to be the special referee for Roxanne Perez and Julia on that first NXT show.
Ah, okay.
So he is the special guest referee, but not for that match. He's going to be the special guest referee for the NXT Championship match between Ethan Page and Trick Williams.
Gee, so, I wonder who's going to win that one.
Yeah.
That's like...
Yeah, I think that both titles are in grave jeopardy on that first NXT.
Didn't they just do a special guest referee with Trick Williams being the special referee against Joe Hendry and Ethan Page at the last pay-per-view?
Yes, they did.
Well, some creative juices are flowing down in NXT, man. I can't believe it.
Well, then, hey, that gives me hope that we'll get a last man standing match then between Bronson Reed and Braun Strowman.
There you go. So, yes, two monsters killing each other was fantastic stuff. And then the ladies killed it. I love Bianca and Io. They always work great together. I even kind of mock tweaked Triple H last night. I'm like, hey, Chief, can we get more of this type of women's action on Monday night, please?
Yeah, Io, she killed her on that suicide dive. I compared it to like Darby Allin. Like Darby Allin was watching that going, holy shit. Like, calm down there. Like she wiped her out with that dive. And then again, the matches that they've had, and they've had several, are always good. Remember the match they had in Puerto Rico last year at Backlash?
Yeah.
And it was helped because they had such a hot crowd. They opened the show, but like they killed it. And last night was one of the best, probably one of the best television women's matches of the year in WWE.
Yeah, always. If I could clone Io and Bianca to get more of that regularly on a weekly basis, I would. But unfortunately, we can't. So they killed it, and it's obviously going to be Damage Control versus Jade and Bianca for the tag team titles whenever that happens. Sami Zayn and Gunther, not yet. He hasn't given Sami the match yet, but Sami did kind of potentially plant some seeds about Kaiser going out on his own. Kaiser says, there's something I got to get off my chest, and Gunther was like, this is something you want to tell me? And then he blasted Sami with a clothesline, but are they potentially setting up the future for Ludwig Kaiser to break out away from Gunther on his own? I don't know if it's going to be an amicable split, but obviously they're planting the seeds for Kaiser to go out on his own because they clearly see him as a single superstar.
Oh, yeah, and he is.
Yeah.
He is. He's I think, better than people give him credit for. Even The Undertaker had some nice things to say about him not that long ago. Yeah, I think when the split, it will happen, and I don't think it'll be amicable, but that's not going to happen for a while.
Yeah. I wish they would treat Vinci the same way, but
I was gonna say he invoked the name last night of Giovanni Vinci, and I'm like, can we, the guy's, he's been beaten up enough. Do we really need to invoke his name here during this?
He lost in 3 seconds to Apollo Crews. Did he get a mention on last week's season premiere? No, he did not. So.
Well, not only did he not get a mention on last week's season premiere. Okay, so you're gonna make me go off on this now. So,
go ahead.
They build this fucking guy up for weeks with these vignettes, right? He's like, it was very similar to the gimmick he did in NXT for a while when they gave him a singles push. He was like the Playboy, and he's looking out the window. He's in like a Vegas hotel room. He's driving around in a Maserati, and it's like, all right, cool. They're gonna try something with this guy. At least give him a shot, right? Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but he's super talented, so why not give it a shot? So they build this up week after week after week. And finally, this is going to be the debut. This is 2 weeks ago now, of Giovanni Vinci. And I knew he was done the minute he came out. You know how I knew? He had the most generic fucking music that I have ever heard. Like, even more generic than the usual Def Rebel generic music. And I said, okay, that's bad omen number one. And he gets into the ring, and he's taking his time, taking his jacket off, and the referee is getting annoyed. And the referee just calls for the bell. And then he got crucifixed over 3 seconds. He gets pinned by Apollo Crews. Apollo Crews can't win a match to save his fucking life. And he just pinned Giovanni Vinci. And he's laughing and he's yucking it up and everything. And then the second thing that I realized, like, this guy is done. They cut away very abruptly to go right into the next segment.
That's the part that pissed me off the most.
Yeah, they didn't give it time to breathe. They didn't really dwell on it. It was just like on to the next, and then it was never mentioned again. And it's like, oh, okay, so we're not even going to try with this guy. We're not even going to really give him a chance. That's nice.
I don't know. I ranted on it. You know what the funny thing is? There was a report from WrestleVotes that went out saying that the WWE higher-ups, whoever they are, powers that be, were not pleased with the way Giovanni Vinci came off on Friday Night SmackDown. Gee, who makes that fucking decision? Why did it get past quality control, and why was it even on the script? Now you're not happy with it. What the fuck kind of report was that?
Well,
who put it on the fucking show?
Well, it must be Vinci's fault. Obviously, he went into business for himself, and he said, tonight I'm going to do the job. And it was all his fault, I guess, right? You could blame him for it. I mean, the whole thing, it's just, again, you build this up after weeks and weeks of vignettes. It's like the, what was it? Oh, my God. They did this with the Funkasaurus, right?
Yeah.
How long did they build that shit up for? And then we end up with, like, the dancing dinosaur. But they built it up for so long, and I'm like, what is, like, what are we doing here? But at least with him, like, he had his role on the show. Like, he was in the middle of the card, but, like, he was that happy, kind of fan-friendly babyface, thing. He had the Funkadactyls with him and everything. He had something. Vinci has nothing because they've already told you have no reason to take this man serious. Like, this man is a goof. He's a geek. and that's it. That's a hard skin to shed because he already was kind of wearing it to begin with. I was surprised they didn't just cut him outright after he got booted out of Imperium. I thought that was going to be the end to him.
I'm surprised he's still employed too.
Yeah. Then I saw they're going to do vignettes, and I'm like, all right, you could potentially build him up as a solid mid-card heel to maybe challenge LA Knight at some point for the U.S. title. Let's see what they do with him. And then that's what they came up with. Okay.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's he's one of the best pound-for-pound pro wrestlers. I remember watching him in the Cruiserweight Classic. He was fucking great then. Then he just completely his transformation, the way he looks now compared to then, not even look like the same person. I don't know, man. Go buy yourself some more Patek Philippe watches and go drink some espresso fucking outside at a beautiful cafe in Italy and go get yourself a nice Italian broad. Please, just get the fuck away from this company.
I just,
seriously.
Again, it's just one of those things that just aggravates the shit out of me. But
first impressions are everything. That has a terrible first impression. I had people telling me, oh, it's going to lead somewhere. Yeah, I'm sure it did because they didn't mention him last week. Fuck out of here. Anyway, that's enough of Monday Night Raw. We got another WWE story here, and then we'll get into some AEW talk. But I want to check on the chat. We got 2,300 people in here. Thank you guys very much for the support on episode 66. 730 likes. I'd love to see that number reach 1,000. So if we can do that, and you guys are in the chat, hit that thumbs up. And super chats are open. Get them on in. We will hang out at the end of the show and drink along with you guys and answer any questions, comments, and concerns. Mick Foley. This was making the rounds on social media today. He said, and I quote, "I'm choosing to appreciate Vince McMahon until I learn more about what may have gone down." Now, as you guys know, Vince McMahon and the docuseries on Vince McMahon's life and career will be airing next Wednesday. I will be glued to my television. Can't wait. Which is said to be a double shovel burial of Vince McMahon. You guys know the lawsuit, sex trafficking, rape, abuse, all that. Janelle Grant, don't need to get into all that. Mick Foley and Rikishi, speaking at Comic-Con Northern Ireland this year, they were asked about the Netflix docuseries on their former boss. Foley says, and I quote, "I genuinely like him. I mean, my relationship was never the same with him after I left WWE and went to TNA for 3 years. To this day, I'm still trying to find an address to write him, just to thank him for taking a chance on me." The fact that Mick Foley doesn't know where Vince McMahon is right now says a lot about what Vince McMahon thinks about Mick Foley. Just saying. "I think all of us are a combination of good traits and bad traits, and you hope your good traits outweigh your bad traits. Perhaps it seems that Vince got it backwards there for a little while. I've been there when he's done good things. I've seen him do good things. When I was writing books, I wanted to essentially do something like Chicken Soup for the wrestling fan's soul about some of these heartwarming moments. He was like, I'm a little concerned that would come across as a little self-serving. He was someone who did the right thing for the right reasons a lot of the time. I really feel bad that someone I care about got into something that seems pretty unsavory. I'm going to hold off judgment until I see the docuseries. But I think one thing that's fortunate is whatever he did or did not do, I don't think many of us are allowing that to mess with our memories. He was instrumental in creating some of these memories, so I think I'm choosing to appreciate him until I learn more about what may have gone down," end quote. Now, just to give you guys a little backstory, Mick Foley used to work with Rain. This is what exactly is Rain, Jason? I don't have
Rain,
yeah.
Rain is the rape, abuse, and incest national network.
Okay. He stopped. He actually worked for Rain, and he stopped by Rain's office several years ago before Christmas. This is a story here that I took from social media. He announced that he and his wife Colette planned to donate to Rain 50% of the advance royalties from his upcoming memoir that year, Countdown to Lockdown. The book includes a chapter about the origins of Mick's friendship with Tori Amos, Rain's original spokesperson. Mick has also begun training at that time to become an online hotline volunteer where he was able to help survivors one by one and lent his fame to the cause by doing media interviews to help raise awareness for the situation to prevent rape. Yeah. So yes, I mean, I got Rikishi's quote here as well, but Jason, how foolish is it of Mick Foley? I get it. We've heard this from John Cena. You know, he was on Howard Stern and said that, you know, Vince McMahon means the world to him and blah, blah, blah. But this is not just an isolated incident here with John Cena. I mean, there's a lot of these old timers. There's a lot of the veterans that used to work for Vince McMahon who just outwardly are afraid to say what really needs to be said, no matter how much good the man did, because he gave them the lifestyle that they lived and the career that they had, and they owe everything to Vince McMahon. And even Rikishi goes on to say basically similar to what Mick Foley did, because, I mean, 75 plus years that family's been working with the McMahon family. You think Rikishi's going to say anything negative about Vince McMahon, knowing that all of his family, his sons, work for WWE? Now, give me a break. But at what point does it stop to look at the evidence? Mick Foley here, look at the evidence and say, we have a lot of the shit that was broken by credible sources about what this man did, the bad that he did. He worked for Reign. He lent his fame to open up to these people and give them an outlet to just be. He was an outlet for people to express themselves in these dire moments. And now with his comments here, how insensitive are these fucking comments by Mick Foley, man? A lot of people on social media completely just demoralize Mick Foley, turn their cheek to Mick Foley today. I don't know how you feel about this, but to me, it's a sad state of affairs to see this happen. And I don't really understand why people are so afraid to actually speak up about the vileness that Vince McMahon did. No matter how important he is to pro wrestling, his vile nature and who he is as a human being is not going to be told in this docuseries. And it's unfair for Mick Foley to say, I'm going to wait for the docuseries that is clearly going to be doctored to paint him in a great light, but also talk about the bad as well. That's fucking ridiculous to me.
So I think that it's laughable if your excuse is, well, I'm going to wait and see what this documentary series says about ridiculous. The man on Netflix. Like, I've never heard anything, about Vince before ever to, even raise any eyebrows here. But apparently this Netflix thing is coming out. So I guess I'll watch the television show and that will tell me all that I need to know. As if we don't have, documented history of Vince being accused of rape, even back in the 80s. And then, of course, other incidents, the tanning salon incident, and just a whole bunch of other fucking creepy things about this man. But you mentioned Reign, and I think that's the thing that really stuck out to people, because he was a very vocal advocate and volunteer for that organization. You mentioned his book, many years ago, and some of the earnings from his book that he donated. He also, donated proceeds. He was doing stand-up comedy shows there for a while, and he was donating the proceeds from that to Reign. He logged something like 500 hours on their national hotline of counseling people, who had been victims of sexual abuse in some form or fashion. At one point, he offered to mow people's lawns if they donated $5,000 or more to the organization. So, like, he was a major advocate for a group, and of all the things, too. And that's why people are kind of, like, struck by his comments here, because... And we've seen this with other people. You mentioned John Cena, and Kevin Nash was another one, and now here Rikishi and Foley, where they talk about how, well, I choose to really just remember all the good times and just think about all the good memories that I have, right? And nobody is saying that you can't think back to the good times and appreciate the good memories that you had with this person or you had of their work. Like people who talk about Chris Benoit, for example. If you want to go back and watch Chris Benoit matches, that doesn't make you a bad person. That's fine. If you want to go back and watch Vince McMahon's greatest promos and greatest segments as Mr. McMahon, that's fine. Because I've had people ask me that, like, well, you talk about Vince McMahon all the time. Are you just not going to listen to his commentary? You're not going to watch his matches anymore, right? You're not going to watch his segments. I'm like, you're a fucking idiot. What are you talking about? Like, no, that's fine. That's a separate issue altogether. What we're talking about here is someone who is accused, right? This is still going to play itself out. But I mean, the things that are in that lawsuit, and this all stemmed coming out of the Wall Street Journal articles about the non-disclosure agreements and the secret relationships, and then boom, this lawsuit drops. And remember, John Laurinaitis' lawyer came out and seemingly like corroborated a lot of the stuff that was in there and didn't just outright refute it. We'll see what sticks and what doesn't. But do I believe that Vince McMahon is guilty of a lot of the sick shit that was cited in that lawsuit? Yes, I do. And if there was even somebody who might have done that stuff, right? The last thing I would want to do is go, I've been fishing around for the man's address because I want to write a letter to him to let him know about how much I appreciate everything that he wants to be this man's fucking pen pal. And just the way that he's talking about, what was the quote? He said, apparently it makes me sad that somebody that I like or care about was, involved in something unsavory.
Yeah, I feel really bad that someone I care about got into something that seems pretty unsavory.
Yeah, like he's the fucking victim here or something. Like, oh man, I feel sorry for him. There's the shit that he got involved in here.
The shit that he willingly took on someone else? Yeah, sure thing, Mick.
There's that. Well, there's that too. So, reserving final judgment until the civil case, or if there's criminal who knows, right? Because he's being investigated by the feds, and they raided his home. Like, this is a story that still has yet to fully play itself out. We just heard yesterday that fucking P. Diddy was taken in and apparently charged with sex trafficking, and we're talking about the same stuff with Vince McMahon. And so who knows? Maybe they'll bring him into custody one of these days. We don't know how it's going to play out yet, but it's just very tone deaf. And I find this consistency with a lot of these guys, and I think a lot of it has to do, and I'm sure part of it is just like in their mind, like they maybe haven't fully processed, because it's just horrendous. Like when you really think about it, it's horrendous.
That's got to be it. That's got to be it, really, yeah.
But it's that, and also the fact that many of them were younger. This is in their younger days when they had that relationship with Vince and they worked for Vince. And I think they looked to him like a father figure and a mentor, and somebody who they always sought his approval, like a father, right? They would probably come back from their matches and they wanted to, what did Vince think? Did you like it? Remember that one WrestleMania documentary, Kevin Owens, WrestleMania 33, and Owens wrestled Jericho.
Yeah.
And Owens goes backstage. He goes right up to Vince at the gorilla position to see what he thought of the match. And Vince was like,
yeah,
he didn't like the match. And Owens after that was like moping around. He was so dejected because all he wanted was like Vince's approval. And I think a lot of that is what we're seeing here with these guys who they are grateful to Vince McMahon for giving them an opportunity. They are grateful to him for changing their lives. And they made a lot of money and made their family a lot of money and probably bought their first houses and all that stuff. And they're willing to overlook certain things because of this love that they have for this man, because they do look to him as somebody who in many ways was like a father figure. I do think when you come out, and I understand that, but I think that when you're making these public comments, the way that they come out and make these comments, both of them, Rikishi and Foley, where they almost make it sound like Vince is the victim here. And I don't want to think about that. I want to think about the good times, and I want to write him a letter, and I want to tell him how much I love him and how much I appreciate him. Like, it's sick. It really is. It's sick.
Well, it's also sad too, because it almost feels like they're brainwashed. Like,
it's a cult. No, it's a cult. It really is.
Like they're nothing. They're nothing without Vince McMahon. It's like you're nothing without Vince. You can't be a good human being without Vince McMahon. You can't realize the wrong without Vince McMahon. Like, what the fuck are we doing here, bro?
But it's not even that. It's just like this notion, like, oh man, I can't imagine, because I always saw Vince do some good things, and I just can't imagine that this is the man that I knew, as if Vince McMahon was some kind of like holy figure for all these years. Like, this shit was always bubbling up underneath the surface. We just didn't realize how deep this shit really went and how bad this stuff really was. But like all the responses, Randy Orton had one of probably the better responses of any of the wrestlers that have come out and spoken on this, and Seth Rollins did too. I think Seth Rollins said it's disgusting. Bret Hart had the best response of everybody, which was, and Bret is another one, to his credit, who has talked about Vince being like a father figure to him, despite all the shit that they went through, despite Montreal and all of it, and blaming him for his brother's death and everything. He has talked about how Vince was like a father figure to him, but when he heard about all this stuff, Bret was one of the first people to come out and say, this is fucking disgusting. Like, I don't want to have anything to do with this guy. I hope he rots in hell. Like, he's just a weird, sick fuck, basically, is what he said. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, that sounds about right as far as the proper response. Or if you just don't want to say anything and you want to let things play out, that's fine too. But when they're fawning over him and they're like, talking about him as if he's the victim in all this, it's just fucking sick. And for someone like Mick Foley to make these kind of comments, given who he is and given the things he's been involved in before and the causes that he has fought for and fought to get attention for, and you're talking about Vince McMahon in this way, you just come off like a fucking hypocrite. And so a lot of people are going to be very disappointed in those comments. I think it's understandable. It was very disappointing to hear him say that.
Yeah, that
nothing
was
wrong. Nothing wrong with waiting. You want to wait to fully form your thoughts until you see how things play out in
the court of law.
In the court of law, I understand that, but still, some of these comments, it's just really, really sad to see them. I don't know if they think he's still pulling the strings or he's going to come back at some point, and they're trying to make sure they stay in his good graces. Whatever it is, I think it has more to do with what I just talked about, though, and how always seeking his approval is always about Vince, right? And they can't wrap their head around this whole situation that this person they thought they knew and they had all this respect for turned out to be one of the biggest, just most vile, disgusting pieces of shit, on the earth. And so it's sad. It really is. It's sad more than anything else.
Yeah, Mick Foley was the last person I would expect to hear that take from. But you mentioned Bret Hart and how he has said that Vince was a father figure to him, but he was never afraid to really shy away from letting his feelings known about basically anybody.
Yeah,
so the moral of the story is be a Bret and not a Mick Foley. That's pretty much what we got to go off here. So
basically, yeah. I mean, that's pretty accurate.
So that was the latest in the Vince McMahon news bin. Next, what was it? The 25th? What was that? Wednesday? Docuseries.
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same day as Grand Slam.
Yeah. So the docuseries will be premiering on Netflix, guys. So if you guys want to sit with us, we will be watching along with you. So I can't wait to see what happens there. But sad story there from Mick Foley. But we are going to get into some AEW discussion and then wrap up this episode 66. We got a major story here from several sources and details on an AEW and Warner Brothers Discovery TV rights deal that is basically at the 1 yard line. It's been at the 1 yard line for a little bit, but we got a major report coming out of the Puck last night, and they are reporting AEW's new media deal looks like it will be a 4-year deal, 3 years guaranteed with a 1-year option. Now, the report says it will be $170 million per year, and that is apparently in the ballpark. This is coming from Fightful. So the report says that AEW will supposedly air on TNT, TBS, and True TV twice per week as part of a strategy to make True TV more sports-oriented. Now, I don't know what that means, what the twice per week means.
Well, I took that to mean that there might be replays of the shows, maybe on True TV.
Yeah. So that could look like it's headed in that direction. The announcement of the deal could come as soon as next week, barring any last-minute changes. Next week, AEW is going to be in New York City at Arthur Ashe Stadium in Queens for Grand Slam. So do they announce it then? Do they have a separate news conference for it? And Tony Khan announces it formally away from the show, before the show? We don't know yet. Contacts that Fightful has spoken to close to the situation claim that this information does reflect the truth and the deal is being closed in on. They don't have a date in which the deal will be announced. Sources we've spoken to at AEW say things have been tight-lipped about the future of the deal and that talent has not been privy to the details of AEW's TV future or the future of pay-per-views. However, several on both sides that we've spoken to believe that the Max pay-per-view and streaming deals very well could be separate from the amount outlined by the Puck and a part of a different deal the two sides are working on. Now, if that confuses you, the way that I read that was AEW is going to be on Max. They will also be on pay-per-view. So if you guys remember back when the WWE Network first got started, it was you pay a WWE Network subscription, you watch the pay-per-views via the network, but if you also want to go watch them, I don't know who would, on traditional pay-per-view, they'd be offered on traditional pay-per-view as well. So it looks like that they may be double dipping on Max and then on traditional pay-per-view outlets. So that's the way I took that. $200 million a year was a large benchmark, which led to the one Bill Phil talking points, which AEW was being referenced to get an all-encompassing deal of $200 million per year over 5 years, equaling the $1 billion total. One Bill Phil was the line that CM Punk famously used on Collision when he came back from his ordeal with AEW when Collision first got started. While the length of the deal wouldn't get them there, the $170 million figure plus additional pay-per-view deals or revenue, as well as outside packages, likely would get them to $200 million. Fightful reported earlier in the summer that AEW had already been offered at least double their previous rights fees. Just after Paris Olympics, another deal had been sent out where AEW was working potentially on additional packages, and Tony Khan was interested in additional packages with outside suitors, not exclusive to Warner Brothers Discovery, which was negotiated in as a result of the AEW Collision deal. This led to AEW Dark and Elevation being removed from YouTube. Fox has become a party of interest regarding AEW and has also spoken to 2 other wrestling companies outside of WWE recent years. Warner Brothers is ready to prepare and announce where their programming will be for 2025. Fightful has not heard of any Ring of Honor talk, but that's not to say those conversations haven't happened. And although AEW's figures aren't publicly known, a TV deal of this size would make AEW profitable, and they could be hitting a big benchmark. Now, I know you, Jason. I know you and I talked about this. We're tired of mentioning the TV deal. We just want to get it done and fucking move on, and let's get the TV the way it needs to be. But $170 million to $200 million, that is a big deal for Tony Khan. I mean, if they get that over 4 years, that's a fucking major increase over what they're sitting at right now. So my question to you right now, where would that bring them as far as the overall spectrum of AEW? Is Tony Khan going to be pleased with that to a point where we get Tony Khan saying this is the second biggest promotion in all pro wrestling, which we know it is. But what does this money do for AEW in the long run here if they do $170 million to $200 million over 4 years?
It secures their future. I mean, that really is what this was all about. I mean, this company needed this big, media deal to be able to continue to operate in the way in which they're operating right now, and to be able to be competitive and sign free agents and bring in new talent and run big stadium shows. All the things they want to continue to do to grow their brand, they are, clearly very reliant on this money, on this revenue for. And Tony Khan has said that they're in the process of trying to work out what would be the biggest deal in the history of AEW. They are already the number 2 wrestling promotion, just de facto number 2 in the world. There might be a lot of distance between the 2 companies because WWE is so much bigger and obviously has a huge head start on AEW. Remember, this is a 5-year-old company here. But they are clearly number 2, and this will put them in a strong position to stay number 2. And it will give them stability. I would imagine it would give them the stability that they need. You look at those numbers. At the beginning of the year, I always do a prediction show. At the beginning of each year, I do like a prediction podcast, and I go over what I got right and wrong the year before, and then I outline what I think is going to happen this year. And like everybody else, I spit out my own prediction for whether or not they were going to get a renewal and what it would be for. And there's a lot of people that didn't think they were going to get a renewal. Even still, there are people who think, there's no way, right? Because they just think, they see the ratings going down and they just think, okay, that's it. The company's dead, right? And I'll have a good laugh when this is finally announced officially at all those people who predicted the death of AEW when they make the announcement that they just signed a $170 million a year contract. I will very much enjoy, and I don't pay attention to all of the social media discourse, but one thing I will seek out for my own entertainment are all the people who are going to twist themselves into a pretzel trying to explain how this is bad news for AEW. I very much look forward to that. But what I said at the time was they're going to double what they were currently making for 3 years. And it sounds like that's not too far off because, at the very beginning, I think, and we don't know because it's not a publicly traded company, but I believe at the beginning, like the first deal they had may have been for like $45 million a year, somewhere in that range. At this point, we don't know what the number is. Clearly, it's gone up because they've added Collision, so they have new programming. It could be in the 70 to 80 million a year range. So this would be more than double. And I think that it would be a nice feather in Tony Khan's cap. There's a reason why I think he's been going around now for the last few months, constantly making these comments about how having great discussions, it's going to be, and he's been basically saying like, this is going to be a great deal. It's going to be a huge deal, because he has felt that to be the case now for a while. So he'll be able to go ahead and gloat and really hold this up as a big deal, as he should, because for all the problems that they have as far as their, domestic attendance, and as far as whatever creative issues they may have, ratings are down from where they used to be. They have a lot of problems, but that is a huge deal if in fact it works out to be in the ballpark that we're hearing. As far as whether or not they're going to be on Max, they're going to be on Max.
Yeah.
Like, and I've seen Andrew Zarian say the same thing. Like,
library pay-per-views will be on Max, and I do believe that they will also be on traditional pay-per-view too, just like the WWE was when they started the network.
Yeah, whatever form on Max it takes, and I would imagine the library would have to be part of it. 100%. They're going to end up on Max. So they'll have that component, which is something they've been missing for a long time now.
And which is great for pro wrestling fans, too. You want AEW, you got one place to go watch it. That's it.
Right. No, exactly. Yeah. So that'll be good. That's like a must. But just having that stability and security, and knowing that whether it's 3 years with a fourth option or if it's 4 years, that's a good chunk of time. It's not 5 years, but, which I think is what the Fox deal was and what the Netflix deal was for WWE. But 3 or 4 years, that's a good amount of time. That's a good amount of money. And it will allow AEW to continue to operate in the way that, Tony Khan has been operating AEW. It doesn't mean that he won't cut costs where he feels he can cut costs. There's been a lot of rumor about how much money he spends on talent and how much money he spends on, entrance music, licensed music and all. I'm sure he's spending a shit ton of money. And just because you have a big deal like this doesn't mean that he won't look for ways to cut costs and save money. But it was just so important to get this over with and get this done so that they can continue to go out and, craft the roster and mold the roster that he wants to have and compete with WWE for this talent. Because you may look at it and go, well, WWE business-wise is up here and AEW is down here, but they're competing for the same pool of talent. Wrestling fans may not want to admit this, but the bottom line is, relative to like other sports and other industries, the pool of wrestling talent is actually very small. It's not like it's this gigantic thing. They're all pulling from the same pool that is relatively limited here, and you need to have money, to be able to do that. And AEW has a lot of things in its favor as far as like the road schedule for AEW. They don't run live events. That might be an attractive thing that they could use to pull people in. Maybe that's one of the reasons that might help WWE, because they're cutting house shows. Might make it more attractive for some people. But I've always said, competition is a great thing. If you're a fan, if you're a wrestler, I can't imagine there's any wrestlers who would disagree with me on that, right? Competition is a great thing. And you don't have to watch AEW. You don't have to like AEW. You don't have to support AEW. But wrestling is better off for having AEW around. That's the bottom line. You don't got to like it, but that's the truth of the matter. And so I'm happy for them. I hope that they can finally announce this shit next week and get this over with so we don't have to keep talking about it. I suspect that, I suspected they were waiting for the 5-year anniversary show, but...
Me too.
Arthur Ashe in New York next week. They may have some WBD people there, so that would kind of make sense if something were to drop that day. I kind of hope it doesn't, because that's going to be a busy day as it is between Grand Slam and the Vince McMahon thing.
Yeah.
We don't need this on top of it on that same day, but good for them. I think this is good not only for AEW but for wrestling as a whole.
Yeah, we've said it individually a lot of times. We've said it on this show many times that we are very big into AEW. We both love AEW. We're happy for everybody there. If this is the case, we're happy for Tony Khan. We're happy for the roster to have that stability, to go out there. They break their bodies. They work their ass to the bone. To be paid for it in this way is a beautiful thing. I just can't wait for them to stop talking about it, because, I spend a lot of time on Twitter. It's a business thing for me. We run the channels through Twitter. We push our content out through Twitter. I'm just tired of hearing all the discourse about it. Solid Monster hates AEW. JD hates AEW. I got receipts. I got all this. Whatever the fucking case may be. I just can't wait for it to be over with. And the only thing I care about here, as far as the deal, is not how much money they make, because I know they're going to make their money. We knew they were going to make their money. Is, are the pay-per-views going to be on Max? Because that's the biggest part for me as a fan. 9 pay-per-views. If they push it to 12, nobody wants to pay $50 a pop for 12 pay-per-views in the calendar year. So that move into Max is the biggest part of this deal that I'm looking forward to most. But my question to you, Jason, is the next question is, and I mentioned this on a video I posted on X earlier, Vince got his money from the Saudis. Vince got his money for the NBCU deal for Monday Night Raw. Billions between that and Fox, right, over the last 5 years. The shows never progressively got better. They only seemingly got worse. How do you feel this money is going to make AEW, if this money does make AEW better as far as a television product? I don't really see them changing the way that they do things because they're so stuck in their ways. And this is the one thing, the one talking point I really want to get across to you guys is, it's great that they're making money. It's great that they're going to be around for 4 years. It's great that they have stability. Jason and I get to create content for the next 4 years, potentially. That is a big thing. We get to sit here and talk about pro wrestling with you guys, about AEW over the next 4 years. That is a huge plus. So we're happy that it's around just based off that, because we make a living off this. But how does this money change the way AEW is operating on a week-to-week television basis? Because the ratings are down, the demos are down, the creative is so hot and cold, I can't keep track of it anymore. Just look at Dynamite. The logic gaps, we'll get into that, are just so glaring, it's fucking laughable. Look at Grand Slam, 21,000 year one, 13,000 the following year, 11,000 after that. They haven't even sold 5,000 tickets to Grand Slam. That is a red flag. If that ain't a red flag for you guys, I don't know what is. So how is this money going to make the TV product better as far as AEW on a week-to-week basis?
I don't know that the money is going to make the television product better. It just boils down to the creative vision of the man in charge. You know, is money going to change that? Is he going to suddenly bring in an army of writers or creative minds that,
or is he going to get lazy and say, I got my money and I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing because that's what they paid us for? That's what I don't want to see.
Well, I mean, that was my fear when we kept hearing about these deals when Vince was still there.
Yeah.
And the product was fucking terrible.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we knew they were going to get even more money on their next media rights deal, which they did. And my fear as a fan was they're just going to coast because they got their money. And that's the thing. That's one of the biggest differences in wrestling today as compared to all those years ago was, you know, this kind of money was not being thrown around, let alone for wrestling. So they still had to make their money at the arenas. They still had to make their money in ways other than just guaranteed television income. So they had to make sure that the product was something that people wanted to see and wanted to pay for. And it's like when WCW died. You know, the fear was, well, we killed our competition, or really their competition killed themselves. It was more like a suicide, but they're gone. And now Vince doesn't have that competition anymore to really push him and light a fire under him. And so creatively, he may decide to coast. And that's kind of what ended up happening. So, you know, in this case, do I think Tony Khan is going to get lazy and coast? No, I don't think he's going to get lazy and coast. I just think that he has a certain vision for his product. A lot of it happened, and he talks about the sickos, right? We've heard him use that expression before. He books for the sickos. He's a sicko. Okay, cool. But those issues that existed before are still going to exist, no matter how much money they're making. Those issues are still going to be there. So that's still something that he's got to work on, and he's got to try to improve. I don't see how this income is going to really change that. And look, for all the issues that we want to sit here and talk about with the AEW product, you know, creatively, it still appears that he has gotten himself $170 million, at least $170 million a year deal for the product as it is. So, you know, he's doing something right, but clearly there are things that he can do to make the product even better, which I think is what we're both talking about.
Yeah.
How does the money change that? I don't think it does. I think those issues are still going to be there, and they're still going to exist. One thing we didn't mention here, Fightful mentions in the report that there could be at least one separate package that's worked out with another media partner because there won't be any exclusivity this time.
Mm-hmm.
we've been hearing a lot about Fox. And AEW might make a deal with Fox. That Shockwave trademark could be for a new television show. There could be a new AEW program on a Fox-owned property. I don't think it would be on Fox proper, but it could be FS1. It could be their Tubi streaming service. And so that could be even more money, which I think is what they're talking about. That could potentially get them into the $200 million a year range total.
And like you said last week, if you're Tony Khan, you take that deal, absolutely.
Of course you do.
Or you make that deal, absolutely, yeah.
It's more money and it's more exposure for your product. But the thing is, now you have a fourth show. Because I don't think Rampage is going away. Collision's not going away. So potentially they will have Dynamite, Rampage, Collision, and let's say Shockwave. Turns out to be a new show. So now there's a fourth show for him to book, even if it's only an hour long, which I think is what we're hearing in these reports. Now he's got a fourth show to book. So that's more on his plate. And I know he's got people who are assisting him. He's got other people creatively who contribute ideas. I don't know what the makeup is of the team there and how it all works. But that's going to be even more work, on his plate. And how is that going to work creatively? Are those storylines going to extend from Dynamite into Shockwave, or are they going to try to put some separation and have storylines that blend from, let's say, Dynamite to Shockwave and Collision to Ramp? Like, we don't know. We don't know how they're going to handle all of that if they add another hour of television. What you don't want to do is add an hour of television to make it just another Rampage.
Well, yeah, that's the whole point I'm trying to make with this other side story here, where FS1 or Tubi come into play. I mean, first of all, do you trust Tony Khan after he gave us Rampage? Rampage at the beginning was promising. So was Collision, and then they fucking fell off. Do you trust Tony Khan to have another 1 hour show? Praise it as something, this is going to be our true B show, what Collision should have been, what Rampage was, and then what Collision should have been, and then have it be, like Jason said, another just 1 hour show where it's fucking hologram and Ring of Honor talent that don't mean anything to storylines across AEW Dynamite. Nobody wants that. Do you trust Tony Khan to make that show into something? No, I don't, personally. Secondly, you would think that if they're going to a Fox entity, that the show is going to have to be somewhat important, don't you think? That's the way I see it. No?
It should be. It should be. Look, I mean, if you're going to make that deal, yes, of course. It's like, look at WWE and the CW. That's a big deal to them. That's a big deal because they're going to be on broadcast television. NXT is their third string show. But they're going to really build it up and try to make it into something because, of course, they want to. And the CW is going to be, of course, all in on promoting them. You would hope Fox, if they make a deal with Fox, that Fox would be the same way. And you want to keep your partners happy. And the best way to do that is to keep people tuned into the show. You've got to give people a reason to tune in every single week. Like you said, putting Christopher Daniels and Hologram out there and Kyle Fletcher, right? Great wrestler, but you got to have more meat on the bone than just that. Like as far as big matches and stories, and are they significant enough where they tie into major storylines, on the main show on Dynamite, which is still going to be the A show. Do I trust that he will be able to do that? I don't. I would like to be wrong on that, but I look at Rampage, which to me, I don't pay attention to Rampage. Collision on most weeks, and I try to keep up with what's going on Collision, but Collision, it's work. I mean, it's like it's become a chore because it's just not what it used to be. It's not, and you can say, oh well, that's the CM Punk effect. Well, the show was focused on because Punk was their big star and he happened to be on that show. That doesn't mean that because Punk isn't there anymore that you can't make Collision an important show. Okay, so that's bullshit. But it's not. That's the thing. It's not an important show. Do you think Collision is an important show?
No, it hasn't. It has not been important since CM Punk was there.
Okay.
But the reason why CM Punk was on Collision, this is why. I mean, I've said that they need to split the rosters. I've been very vocal about that. Give me something as far as who's on a show and why I should come out to your show and watch. Who is on that show that you were going to buy a ticket to see live? You don't know. It's a mixed bag. It's like a fucking mixed bag of trail mix. I don't know what the fuck I'm getting. I could pull out an M&M. I could pull out a cashew. I could pull out a fucking pretzel. I don't know what I'm getting on the show. I want to know who I am buying a ticket to see. People knew they were buying a ticket to see CM Punk at least 3 out of the 4 weeks of the month when watching Collision. They don't have that now. So I don't know what the fuck we're watching the show for. Who's there? That's the problem that they're missing. They don't have a star attraction on any of these shows. It's like, it is so mismanaged. It fucking frustrates me as a fan. And I get where you're going with it, but they don't have a reason to watch these shows at all. Rampage and Collision, no.
Yeah, but I disagree that you need a brand split in order to accomplish that. I don't think having an AEW, like a hard brand split, is going to do.
No, they'd fuck it up. So I gave up the discussion because splitting titles, and splitting rosters, it's like they fuck it up.
Right. It's not even whether or not they're going to fuck it up. Even if they put their best foot forward and tried to make it work, you're talking about doing that at a time when they're having these severe attendance issues on most weeks here in this country. So the idea that you would split the roster, the existing roster, you would split it in half and expect that you're going to have a better time selling tickets to Collision is a fallacy. I mean, that's just ridiculous. All you need to do is just focus on creatively improving your product, and also, make sure that you take your big names and your big stars and you spread them out enough between the different shows. You don't have to have a hard brand split in order to do that. So really it just boils down to, and it always sounds so simple, I know, but you want to give people attractions, meaning talent and big matches, but talent, you want to give people attractions that they want to see and stories that are compelling and are interesting and that they'll want to tune in and say, hey, I want to see what's happening this week. WWE does that with the Bloodline stuff, and some people are sick and tired of the fucking Bloodline. Think about when the Bloodline story was at its apex, right? You were tuning in week to week, most people were, who were interested in it because you wanted to see what was coming next. Maybe you just wanted to see what the next funny segment was going to be with Sami Zayn. He's going to make everybody crack up. Or is this the week that Jey Uso is going to finally say, fuck this, I'm gone, I'm done, right? But that was their golden goose. That's why SmackDown's ratings soared, because it was all due to the Bloodline story. And this year, you have Punk and McIntyre. You could point to different stories that kept people tuned in week to week. Right now in AEW, they're trying something with Jon Moxley. I don't know where the story is going, and I like that because I'm intrigued. I want to know where it's going. I don't know if Shane McMahon ultimately is going to be a part of it or not. They don't fucking need Shane McMahon, but maybe he'll be involved, and maybe they'll make it interesting in some way. But I like that. Okay, we don't know where this Moxley, Marina Shafir thing, BCC thing is going to end up going, right? They need something like that because they tried that with the Elite angle, and it fucking failed. It didn't work. Clearly it didn't work, right? Just look at the numbers. So they're going to try something here with this story. Maybe that can, change their fortunes and help bring in new viewers to the show. Probably not, but we'll see. But that's the sort of thing they need to do more of. And it's not a magic formula where it's guaranteed to work, but that's the sort of thing that they need to try to, I think, turn things around as far as either bringing back some of the viewers that have deserted the shows, or try to make new fans. If they end up on FS1, maybe there's a whole new batch of fans they could try to make. But you're not going to do that by just putting matches out there that don't have anything behind it. Like, that's not going to work. That's the point. Some people don't like hearing that. I mean, look, I love great matches too, but there's got to be more to it than that.
I mean, they shit out great matches. That should be the last thing that they have to worry about. I mean, look at the roster that they have. Like, you hit the nail on the head. I've been saying this for fucking months. They need a Bloodline story, whatever that is, for a week-to-week television program to captivate the audience and generate emotion. They don't have it. Are they trying with Jon Moxley? Sure. Everything else that they've done, it hasn't felt that way since Punk and MJF had their fucking feud. It hasn't felt that way since Punk was there in general. So I don't really know where else to go as far as that. But they're trying with this Jon Moxley story, and I don't know where it goes, but that's the reality of the situation, guys. If you're an AEW fan and you don't like the harsh and tough criticisms, that's exactly what they need to do. You're not going to get by with this new TV deal by doing the same shit that you did for the first 5 years. You need to give us story. And if some of this $170 million reportedly is going anywhere, it should go to Tony Khan taking a big step back and hiring some Hollywood writers to write for him, whether it's Collision, Dynamite, or this new Shockwave if this ends up being a show. Something needs to change, and I think that's the way to do it. If we're not going to do a split rosters, which I don't really see them doing that anyway, it's nothing more like Jason said, a fallacy. That's where the money needs to go. So that's what I hope that they do, and that's the change that needs to be made. But Jon Moxley and this story is captivating enough, Jason, to a point where they got my interest over the last 3 weeks. Jon Moxley came out. He's been saying these cryptic quotes, and he's been alluding that this is not their company anymore. It's our company now. Pac said the same thing on Wednesday's Dynamite. And it all kind of blew up with the Grand Slam show that was reportedly supposed to see Darby Allin and Bryan Danielson for the AEW Championship. Bryan was suffocated it all out. And on Wednesday, Jon Moxley said that, and I quote, Bryan Danielson was indisposed on All Out, and he's not going to be wrestling at Grand Slam. He's not going to be defending his championship. So Darby Allin gave us a sob story about how Jon Moxley was a hero to him while he was on the Indies, and he wanted to model himself after Jon Moxley, and now he doesn't. He's a piece of shit. So Bryan's not going to be defending the championship against Darby Allin, but Darby Allin has got this number one contendership. What do we do with it? Jon Moxley says, I want it. Darby says, all right, I'll give it to you, just to prove to everybody that you're a piece of shit. So the way I looked at it was, all right, you just told me Bryan was indisposed. So if he's not defending the championship, that means he can't wrestle. So on the same show, Nigel McGuinness goes to Tony Khan, walks out later in the show with a contract from Tony Khan, and says that, well, Darby Allin's not going to get a championship match against Bryan Danielson, and he's given this number one contendership to Jon Moxley. Bryan Danielson is free that night. I'm issuing the challenge, and I got a letter by Tony Khan here, signed, sealed, and delivered. The match is going to take place at Grand Slam. But you just told me that the fucking guy was indisposed and he can't defend the championship. So why is he wrestling Nigel McGuinness on Grand Slam? Why did you change the fucking matchup from something that a lot of people wanted to see to something that I genuinely feel is now rushed just to sell fucking tickets to Grand Slam because you are bleeding in Arthur Ashe and you can't fill that fucking stadium the way that you're supposed to? What did you make of this, man? I talked about this almost immediately on Wednesday, and I'm like, I couldn't believe what the huge logic gaping hole that they created on Wednesday night. It was fucking laughable.
Yeah, and they tried to kind of dig their way out of that hole on Collision, but it's still silly and really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So basically, it's one of two things, if not a combination of both. Number one, I do think that they were looking for an attraction to try to sell more tickets to Arthur Ashe. And it doesn't look like the announcement of that match really made that much of a difference. So I definitely think that's one element to it. The other is the fact that, Bryan's full-time in-ring career is winding down. He has said that the next match he loses, that's going to be it. And we're not going to see him in the ring very often at that point. And they may have looked at it and said, okay, it's kind of now or never, and they feel like, well, if we're going to do this match, we have to do it now. And we didn't do it at Wembley, but we'll do it at Arthur Ashe because it is an attraction. And so I think it's a combination of those two things, and that's fine. Look, I'm happy that we're getting the match. This is going to be a great match. And McGuinness has been healing on Bryan for over a year on commentary. Very entertaining. He's come up with all kinds of nicknames for him, the Neck Break Kid and Brittle Bryan, and we've been hearing this for over a year now. And Nigel looked good for the time that we saw him in that Casino Gauntlet at All In. Has not wrestled a singles match since, I believe, 2011. The last time these two had a match together was, I believe, their last night in Ring of Honor. They were both supposed to leave and go to WWE. Bryan did. Nigel didn't work out. But that was 15 years ago in Ring of Honor. So there's a lot of history there to draw from. It does feel rushed. But again, maybe they felt like it's now or never. We either do it now or we don't do it. But the logic gap is it's laughable. Because again, to do it, like you said, on the same show where you just had Jon Moxley, I guess maybe Jon Moxley's lying. I don't know. But you have Jon Moxley saying the champion is indisposed. Darby Allin has this guaranteed championship match. He won the Royal Rampage. He's had this in his back pocket now for weeks. And Jon Moxley says, well, Bryan's not going to be able to compete and defend the title on that night. And so why don't you give me a match? Put your shot on the line. And Darby's like, okay. All right. More guts than brains over here. I guess it kind of fits the character. But then on the same show, to have Nigel come out with an already prepared contract, Tony Khan is signed. Apparently, Tony Khan is okay with not having a championship match on the show, but having his champion, who may not be 100%, compete in some other random match. And they did say, well, pending whether or not Bryan is medically cleared, but we all know the match is going to happen, of course. And so he'll be on the show. But now all of a sudden we lost a championship match, and Tony Khan evidently is seemingly okay with that. It's goofy, and it really doesn't make any sense. and it's stupid how they got to it. It's not gonna diminish my enjoyment of the match itself. It does make me wonder, though, if come Wrestle Dream, which I assume is the next time we see Bryan defend that title. Can't imagine he doesn't defend on that show. If Darby and Moxley might be involved, and maybe we get a three-way. And this talk about possibly putting the title on Darby Allin, I mean, do you think that there is a good chance that Darby Allin could walk out of Wrestle Dream as the AEW World Heavyweight Champion? Because to me, I don't know, just to have Danielson lose the title to Moxley, and Moxley be the one to kind of sort of retire him, and not have somebody else in that spot like a Swerve or a Darby and have them be the one to do it, I think would be a little disappointing.
I don't know.
Like, to kind of waste it on Moxley.
All of this is so fucking ridiculous, man. I swear to God.
It is, but just like,
first of all, the way I would do. Listen, I don't. They got to where they got. We're gonna watch it. Some of you guys deemed. I know. Have you been in person at the Hammerstein to watch Nigel and Bryan wrestle? Or no?
I'm trying to think. I don't think I was at that match in 2009. The last match they had, I don't.
Like, I understand. I would never shit on someone who finds this to be, like, people have been waiting years for this match to happen. God bless you. This is something that has been a long time coming. We all love Bryan. Nigel's fantastic. I get why this match is important. Me, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I never watched Ring of Honor. I wasn't into Ring of Honor. I didn't even know what Ring of Honor was, honestly. Found out what Ring of Honor was when NXT started to purge them and steal all their talent. That's when I found out about Ring of Honor. But it doesn't mean that type of importance to me. I don't feel a certain way about it, like most people.
But again, that's why seemingly, I mean, you would think that with the match announcement, maybe they would have sold a whole bunch of tickets.
Yeah.
They have sold tickets, but not nearly as many as you would think for what's supposed to be an attraction. So you're not the only one who feels that way. No. As somebody who did watch Ring of Honor, or at least I went to enough of the shows where I knew all the key players and Danielson and Nigel among them. So it's not just the history there that appeals to me, but again, the fact that Nigel has been kind of talking about this for so long. And so it's not like it's just coming out of nowhere. I mean, they kind of, the seeds were planted a long time ago. But remember, he books for the sickos, and that's really what this match, I think, is geared to. It's those diehard fans who do know the history between them and who maybe were Ring of Honor fans, like Tony Khan was. That's why he bought it. Right? He was a huge Ring of Honor fan, and we see him do this. He books these matches that he thinks are dream matches, and they're gonna be a great match. Do they have any box office appeal? Seemingly not. I mean, it's not like when Danielson wrestled Kenny Omega at Arthur Ashe, which was a big deal, and that felt like a big deal when you saw the two of them in the ring. And of course, they had 20,000 people in the building, not just because of that match, but Kenny Omega was one of the biggest stars in the company. So that was a bigger attraction than this is. But I do think in this market, in front of their audience, there are people who do know the history, who are going to have, a lot of interest in seeing this match. It just strikes me that they wanted to save Bryan's next title defense for Tacoma. And they just said, okay, why don't we do Bryan and Nigel, on this show? And then we have this side story going on with Moxley, and we'll just kind of flip things, and we'll do it this way.
I get it. I feel like part of us are being cheated out of a great story. Like I get Nigel has been talking about this and kind of alluding to this for the last year, but it does feel rushed, like we both mentioned before. We don't know if Bryan's going to be on Dynamite. We don't know if Bryan's going to be on Collision. I mean, there's no fucking promo between these two, face to face in the ring together. You think with this big match there'd be some sort of segment together in the ring, and I don't even feel like we're going to get that.
Well, there should be, and I'd be very disappointed if we don't get that, because that's a product of it feeling rushed. I don't have the indication that Bryan's even going to be on the show tomorrow night. Doesn't mean he won't be, but how do you not have at least that one face-to-face in-ring promo segment between the two of them to let them sell the match? Let them talk about their history together. And Nigel touched on this a little bit in that segment on Wednesday last week. That's really the story of this match. We were both supposed to go to WWE. We were both supposed to go way up. You did, I didn't. And he resents him for it. That's kind of the crux of the story here. But I think you need to articulate that in the face-to-face. I don't know if they have enough time to even have a face-to-face segment. How are you not going to have at least one segment, with these two guys cutting a promo on each other? So, and I would certainly hope that happens on Dynamite and not Collision. But
yeah,
if it was Collision, so be it. But yeah, I mean, it will be very disappointing and very head-scratching if we don't get, I mean, I guess you could make it a contract signing. You could do a contract signing, right? Bryan has to sign the contract. That would seem to be something that we should see tomorrow night. They haven't announced anything yet. Maybe they will tomorrow, but that is something that we definitely need.
My question to you would be, I mean, that's great and all, but don't you think Bryan wants to go find Jon Moxley first and foremost to say, hey, bro, why did you suffocate me with a fucking plastic bag?
Of course, he was almost murdered. Yes.
But Nigel's like secondary. Fuck Nigel. I'll get to you in a second, man. Yo, bro, why did you suffocate me?
They're going to be in the same building at Grand Slam. So why would Bryan not go after Moxley? And you have to have security hold him back from trying to get his hands on Jon Moxley for trying to kill him and put a plastic bag over his head. Yes, of course, all of these things you're saying make sense, but this is wrestling. And sometimes, unfortunately, there's a lot of stupid shit that happens and you have to suspend your disbelief and say, okay, well, maybe there's some other explanation for it. Maybe Tony Khan is like, look, you gotta stay apart from each other or I'm going to suspend you. I don't fucking know. You're asking me to make sense of something that is just doesn't make any sense.
Fucking headache, man. Listen, I don't have any desire to see Darby Allin win the world championship. I think going back to Jon Moxley fits the overall story about this is not your company anymore, because I do think it's alluding to Shane McMahon coming in. And if he's going to take the title, then I would say that's like the heart of the company. So
what
I can see that being the
case. If this is Shane McMahon, what is the end game here?
I have no idea.
I say this to all the people who are excited about this.
Maybe he runs Aftershock. I don't fucking know. Who knows? I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know. I don't want to see Darby as the champion. I don't really care for Moxley as the champion. You know who I put the championship on? I said this last week. I'm going to say it again. Adam Page. That's who I wanted to retire Bryan and Tacoma.
I thought that was going to be the match for Wrestle Dream, but there's been no... I mean, it certainly doesn't look that way. I mean, I've enjoyed the work that he's done, like the character work, and he has great matches. So like I'm digging the Hangman character. He's got the new brooding music and everything. So yeah, I would have been totally fine. And who knows, maybe they still will. But I would have been fine with them building to him and Bryan in Tacoma and have him beat Bryan and win the championship. And then eventually, when Swerve comes back, you can have Swerve have to work his way back, up to the number one contender spot. I mean, I know some people at this point might be done. They might not want to see Swerve and Hangman anymore, but yeah, you can get one more match out of it where Swerve wins the belt back, if you believe that he will win the belt back at some point. Looks like he's taking some time off. That's kind of what it looks like to me. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm with you. I mean, Darby would not be my first choice. I just posed the question if you thought he had a real chance to end up with that championship. You had Moxley on TV last week, like, you'll never be champion. Usually when they have somebody saying that, it's like, okay, this guy's going to be champion. Like, just a matter of how are they going to, get there. Wouldn't be my first choice to put the belt on him, but I just think if you just have Moxley be the one to beat Bryan, it's like, all right, that might put the angle over, but I just feel like we're just going back to the same old. At least with Hangman, yeah, he's been champion before too, but he's not Moxley. He's an AEW. He's one of these AEW guys that I look at and I say, okay, he's part of the fabric of that company. He's got this character that he's doing. He's doing great work, and I'd rather see the title on him rather than Jon Moxley, who doesn't need it.
The other thing that I'm really concerned about, and I don't really understand why people aren't making a bigger deal about this, because to me, it's just so fucking revealing. It's staring you right in the face. It's like a deer in headlights. AEW going into Grand Slam, they don't have 5,000 tickets sold after the huge decline from being there the last 3 years. First year, I held a meet and greet in Forest Hills, and I did it outside Forest Hill Station House. We had a beautiful attendance out there. Everybody was excited. I seen billboards. I seen fucking bus stops with AEW insignia on it. I seen actual taxis and buses with the AEW Grand Slam logo. I haven't seen any of that this year. And it's not like AEW has exposed themselves in the New York market to a point where they're bleeding the whole territory here dry. It's like, they were here for World's End. Maybe one other they were here for Forbidden Door at the UBS Arena. I mean, outside that, I really can't think of anything in recent memory. So going back to Queens, you would think that, all right, they're back again. There's enough time in between. Why aren't they selling well here? Is the product that fucking cold? And why aren't people calling out this huge red flag? I mean, to me, that's a big deal. I don't know what they do to fix that, but what do you think Tony Khan is thinking about this? Does he look at that as much of a big deal as we do?
I don't see how he can. I mean, he's got access to all the numbers more than anybody else. Like, he's not an idiot. He's a numbers guy. He's a stats guy. He's a business guy. So he sees what's going on. As far as why, you answered your own question. The product is obviously not nearly as hot as it was at the time that they drew 20,000 people into the building.
47-63 at the moment, says Thomas Franco. Yeah, they'll hit about 55 by
they might
Wednesday.
be over 5 by now.
Yeah.
I think that's an outdated number. So it's very possible they're already over 5. But if they are, it's probably not by much. Now, AEW does do, or they have in the past, they've done good walk-up business.
Yeah.
So what the final number will end up being, you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if the final number was between 7 and 8. But that's still a decline. It's still a year-over-year decline from where they've been in the past. And the only way to explain it, you can't make excuses. Well, there's some other big event. The United Nations is convening in New York, which I think they might be that week. I don't know. There's no other explanation for it. The product is either hot and people want to pay to see it, or they don't. And that's it. It's as simple as that. So clearly, the interest level in the product is not there in the way that it was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. How you solve that is everything we already talked about. There's no sense in relitigating it. You just have to give people stars and attractions and matches that they are interested in paying to see. And you also want to do a good job with your local PR. We'll find out, because if they're going to have a lot of the talents going around doing local media, I mean, we'll see it because we live here. And you're not going to do that until the week up.
Yeah.
So the fact that we haven't really seen anything yet doesn't mean anything. Like, if I were, booking interviews for talent, I would be doing it as close to, game day as possible. So I would hope to see some of the talent on some of the local newscasts here, early next week. If not, then that's a problem. But I would imagine that we'll see that. I think they did a good job of that with Forbidden Door. I think MJF was doing a lot of local television advertising. I noticed that Swerve was doing a lot of that type of stuff and PR and podcast and radio interviews for them when he was the champion, maybe more than anybody else. So that's what I'll be looking for next week, because that's very important, and that's been an issue for them in the past. There are markets they'll go to, and I'll have people online who are like, "Shit, I would have gone. I didn't even know they were coming to town."
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, the card is looking pretty solid. I mean, we got Nigel and Bryan, we got Darby and Mox, we got Roddy and Hook for the FTW title. I'm sure they'll book Jeff Jarrett and Adam Page. We got Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher against the Young Bucks for the tag team championships. I mean, I would have went with the Outrunners, but that's just me. But I mean, it's a solid show. I mean, it's probably a very good show. Probably end up being a very good show, but lack of excitement coming into it. MJF's not on the show. Swerve is not going to be on the show. It's like, that's what they have the roster that they have for. They have, when those holes are there, they have people in place to really fill those spots. And I just wish it was a little bit better,
But hey, look, Chris Jericho is wrestling Orange Cassidy tomorrow night.
He is.
Aren't you excited?
I can't wait. The learning tree.
Can't you tell my level of enthusiasm is just off the charts right now?
I know. I mean, he dumped all that spare change onto his Maserati or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah, what was that about? Like, we've seen angles before where cars are destroyed, and then I watched this, and I'm like, that's it? Like, what are you so worried about, dude? Like, just... Well, you would think that he keyed his car, he fucking flattened it into a pancake, he rammed it with a semi.
To be fair, bro, I mean, I wouldn't want fucking $7,000 worth of spare change dropped on my dark horse.
But I wouldn't drop to my fucking knees and cry in the middle of the ring the way that he did. I'd drop some spare change into my car. I'd get a vacuum hose and I'd be sucking that shit up.
Anyway, guys, thank you very much for all your support, man. We had upwards towards 2,500 here on Tuesday Night Titans. We are 8 likes away from 1,000, too. So thank you guys very much, man. Hit that thumbs up. Let's get to 1,000. I know you guys will. Super chats are open. We're going to get into them in just a second. Jason and I want to thank you. As always, hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Go follow Jason on Twitter and on YouTube as well. Everything you need for him is linked down below in the description. If you guys want to go buy a t-shirt, man, Tuesday Night Titans official merch on Bonfire. Go and get your t-shirt. And we will see you on Dynamite. We got our individual reviews. We'll be live after tomorrow's Dynamite. I'll be with Jesse. Jesse is always a good time on Wednesday nights. And Jason is going solo, as usual.
Write in my name.
Gabriel Boss. Thank you, brother. Solo was pinned twice by Cody. Solo is not taking the pin again at Bad Blood. Roman and Jacob certainly are not eating the pin. Cody is the odd man out again. I don't know. I didn't really think that far ahead. We're not there yet. We got a couple of weeks, but I would say Solo gets pinned. Roman and Cody are not getting pinned.
No. I think Jacob may get the pin on Cody.
Really? Okay.
Well, I mean, think about it. Like, you're not going to beat Jacob. So Solo would not, if they were going to lose, Solo would be the one getting beat. But if you're going to build to a War Games match, you want to give the Bloodline momentum going into that show. And you can always play it like Roman and Cody. Right? They're not on the same page. They're not friends. They're not partners. So I think there's a better chance that they lose as opposed to Solo just eating the pin again.
Interesting. Yeah. All right, we'll see. Boots, thank you for the $100 super chat, brother. Appreciate your generosity earlier in the stream.
Thank you, Boots.
Michelle with the 2. Do you see Seth back at Bad Blood? If not, when? I'd like to see him back just in time for Saturday night's main event. I hope it's not serious.
I think he'll be back in time for Survivor Series.
Okay. Vincent Tarantini with 28 months. Saturday night's main event happens the day after my 44th birthday. Awesome. Also, JD, you and Solo are the greatest in the IWC OTS for life. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
Cake, thank you for a re-up on the membership, bro. And you also with the $2 super chat. Cody deserves everything Seth will do to him now. Seth's going to have a problem with Cody? They're on different brands. Yeah, I guess that doesn't make sense if you really want to think about it. I mean, they back Cody up, and now he's teaming with a guy that they helped beat. Maybe that'll come back around sooner or later. I don't know. Preston, $4.99. With your clip on certain wrestling media guys making the rounds, I want to know who you thought were some good wrestling media personalities in this space. You're looking at one that's sitting right next to me here. That's all I got to say.
I just love how Issa is so happy at the prospect of Cody eating the pin at Bad Blood. She's just over the moon. Yeah, but that means Roman losing, though. Like, you're okay with Roman losing?
It's all right. His shoulders aren't going to be pinned to the mat. Issa wants to be the one pinning Roman's shoulders to the mat. I know that.
Well, I'm sure. Yeah.
We love Issa. Issa, how you doing? Preston, thank you, brother. Cake with the $2 super chat. Cody deserves everything. I just read that. Thank you, Cake. Dom Joseph with a $4.99. What if Benoit and Eddie's early death did not happen? How long would share shots to the head be around? Would the PG era never happen?
I mean, they would have had to adapt at some point anyway. Yeah. It's just the way of the world. So I think it would have taken longer, but I think it would have been inevitable.
Mr. Team Bring It with a $4.99. If you could watch a match between two wrestlers from both the AEW and WWE roster, who would they be? Now?
Well, it's funny. I got a question similar to that the other night, and I mentioned Ospreay and Rollins, which I think would be tremendous, but also Gunther and Danielson.
Yes.
That'd be a good one.
Gunther and anybody, really. Honestly.
Yeah, but him and Danielson, oh yeah, Gunther and Ospreay, Gunther and Omega, but him and Bryan, like have Gunther be the one to retire him?
Yep.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah, I would say probably Gunther Bryan, yeah. Mr. Team Bring, a very good question. Thank you, brother. Basic, within 18 months, McIntyre needs to come out to Broken Dreams. Yeah, I wish. I don't know if WWE's going to dip back into the nostalgia pool, but yeah, I wish that was his theme moving forward, but unfortunately it's not. Sidro with a 2. What concert is 45 cents? 50 Cent with Nickelback. Jesus Christ. Fucking crazy, man. Thank you, bro. So stupid, it's so funny, man. It's unbelievable you are. Saya with a 5. Mercedes Moneymaker finishing move looks good when she does it on Japanese wrestlers, but it's botched on AEW wrestlers. She should change it for AEW. Yeah, the Moneymaker's awful. I wish she'd just go back to the bank statement, to be honest with you, but I understand why she changed it up, because she wanted something different for her new run. But
well, it's because a lot of the wrestlers in AEW are bigger than her. It just doesn't work.
No.
It just looks terrible. It's just and I love Mercedes, but like, for the love of God, I mean, she needs a new finish.
Yeah. Cake with a 33 months. Congrats to TK on the new deal. Fuck dynamic pricing. I shudder to think about those WrestleMania prices given it's Coachella weekend.
It's also Easter Sunday that weekend.
I didn't take, WrestleMania is going to be WrestleMania. Does Coachella have a bearing on what happens at WrestleMania for prices?
Well, where is Coachella being held?
I'm assuming it's Vegas, being that he mentioned it's WrestleMania weekend.
For some reason, I thought it was Florida, unless I'm thinking of the Ultra Music Festival. Well, I mean, yeah, maybe if it's in the same city, it could, but otherwise, I don't know. What would the impact be?
Well, we'll look into that, bro. I had no idea. I don't really follow anything fashion-wise, but we may be out there for WrestleMania, depending on what House of Glory does. We don't know. Hollywood guy with a $10 super chat for Saturday night's main event. Which roster should they put on the show? Since Raw is going 2 hours, do you see the rest of the roster appearing on Saturday nights, or just bring in the big names? I think it'll be a joint show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be mixed brand.
Yeah.
Again, I think some people think, because I saw some people asking, like, is this going to be a weekly thing? It's not a weekly thing. It's a quarterly thing. So they're contractually obligated to 4 of these every year. So they're going to spread them out, one probably in the winter, spring, summer, and fall. Not a weekly show.
Yeah, I'm sure Tony Khan loves the fact that WWE is stepping onto Saturday Night Turf at least once a quarter, but...
Hey, you know what? He should be thanking his lucky stars. They're not running the 28th, which is what I thought for sure was going to happen. They were going to run that fucking... They were going to take that house show in Orlando and turn it into fucking Saturday night's main event up against World's End. He should be thanking his lucky stars.
You had me convinced for sure. And Issa says Coachella is always in Palm Springs.
Okay.
Oh no, Cake says with the $2 super chat, Sexy Red has been confirmed for the St. Louis NXT. Oh God, okay.
Wonderful.
Great.
Maybe she'll get Randy Orton to twerk and then he can, well, I won't say.
No. Mr. Team Bring It with a $1.99. Who is the modern day Foley, HBK, and Austin?
There's only one Austin.
Literally nobody's in Austin.
Nobody. I mean, it's just, it's just ridiculous to even think about there being another Austin. There's only one Stone Cold. Mick Foley, you know what? I'll give you one comparison because it hit me last night watching him on Raw. When Sami Zayn walked out there in that plaid shirt,
yeah,
he reminded me of Mick Foley because the shirt and just like the hair and everything. So like physically, he was reminding me a lot of Foley. But no, those guys are one of a kind, man.
If I was to compare anybody to Mick Foley, it would probably be Sami Callihan. Just for the style. I guess Cactus Jack style, but nobody's a Foley. Nobody's an HBK. Nobody's an Austin.
No.
Joey with a $10 super chat. Joey Clemenza. Hey, JD and Solo. My uncle had a mild to moderate stroke tonight. I was wondering if you guys could send a few prayers and good energy my way. Much appreciated. Love you all. OTS Familia. Joey, thoughts, prayers, and love out your way, man. Sorry to hear that, brother.
Yeah, sending positive vibes, Joey.
Mr. Noob with the 3 months. Just an FYI, Netflix has PG programming, so if WWE follows suit with the PG label for that bigger PG ad rate money, we still might get muted chance. No. No, we're not going to fucking Netflix and getting muted chance. Give me a break. Come on. I hope not, anyway. Don't scare me like that.
See, now that you said that, we're going to get black screens on Netflix like we did on Fox.
Drew Mackincock with a $1.99. I don't.
My boy. He's one of mine. He's one of mine.
Okay. He says, "Hi guys."
You know.
I thought he was one of Demeter Bullion's guys. I'm sorry.
No, he's one of mine. Sometimes with the asylum, you leave the doors open and then just get out.
It's all right.
You ever see the movie, the first Halloween movie?
Yeah.
Okay, so the opening scene when Dr. Loomis drives up to the sanitarium, it's pouring outside, and he's like, shit, like all the patients are just walking around free. Yep. Yeah, those are my guys tonight.
Mr. Team Bringer with a $4.99. What do you think would have happened to pro wrestling if Tommy Dreamer went along with his hit on Paul Heyman at WrestleMania 17?
I think that would have been the end of wrestling as we know it.
Yeet with a $4.99. Your honest opinion, will AEW still be cold, or do you think they will be hot again this upcoming year? Well, I don't know, man. They signed Mercedes, they signed Okada, they signed Ospreay. We got MJF back this year. I don't know. This year should have been the year. I don't know why they're still cold. We know why they're still cold. They have to fix the problems that we rose today in the podcast. So hopefully next year will be it. Thomas with a 20. HBO Max have produced many original TV series that have won numerous awards using their talented writers, directors, and producers. Should Tony Khan give up some of his creative control to HBO and Max to help grow his product? Yeah, good luck with that. Tony Khan give up power? Yeah, give me a break, man. This is fucking Vince Jr. minus the sexual allegations over there.
I don't think Max wants to get into the business, frankly, of booking and writing professional wrestling.
No. And Aman G will end with this. $1.99. Aren't y'all excited about PFC in War Games?
Your Fusion garbage collection?
Please don't will that into existence. I hope not. I mean, if there's no need for a women's War Games match, we don't need to do one. Like,
haven't they been doing great, by the way? Last week we had a trios match where Natalya came back and the babyfaces beat the Pure Fusion Collective. And then last night we had Natalya pinning was it Zoe?
Yeah.
Right? They had a singles match? Okay. So PFC is on quite the streak right now.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get up every time to go make a coffee when they're on TV. And unfortunately, when I get back to the couch, they're still on TV. I don't know. Anyway, guys, episode 66 in the books. Thank you very much. We're over 1,000 likes. We had 2,500 in here tonight. Thank you guys very much. As always, it's accustomed. I'm going to leave Jason to sound us off for another week here on TNT.
Well, just to mention a name that many people may not be aware of, and it was kind of a story that flew under the radar in the last couple of weeks, but there was a big name in WWE behind the scenes that apparently shocked a lot of people who announced that they were leaving, believe they retired, and that was their longtime production designer, Jason Robinson. And the reason why he is a significant name is he really was, in many ways, the mastermind. It had a lot to do with the sort of iconic stage and set designs for all of their major pay-per-views and television shows, really from WrestleMania X7 all the way to WrestleMania 40 this year. He'd been with the company for over 25 years, had a hand in, just so many stages from that period. I think he was involved in designing the roller coaster. Remember the roller coaster design from WrestleMania in Orlando? I still think that's the best one. And WrestleMania last year in Hollywood is like right there, maybe at number 2.
I had a fondness for WrestleMania 34 in New Orleans. I love that color scheme and I love that set design on the stage.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't too hot on that as much as I was the other ones, but again, he had his hand in all of that stuff. And so really one of the unsung heroes behind the scenes in that company, I thought he deserved a mention.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. That is very impressive. I missed that. I missed the uniqueness of the stages. We don't get that, but I get why they're doing it. They're making a lot of money. They're selling a lot of tickets. They got to accommodate. Zero Kaiba, 29 months. Thank you, brother. Is it just me, or do you guys find the Rhea Ripley, Jey Uso love angle to be extremely forced and cringed? It was much more natural with Dom. I don't think it goes anywhere, honestly. They're just kind of playing into the social media lore that everybody seems to want to hang on to. So
yeah, I don't think it's anything formal that's going to have like a payoff or anything. It's just them having fun.
Yeah. Thank you guys very much for all of your support. We will be back next week, as always, for TNT episode 67. Make sure you guys follow us on social media. Make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube and all that good stuff. Everything you need is linked down below. And thank you guys for a great stream. Wednesday's Dynamite. Jason and I will be live on our respective channels. Join us next week for episode 67. Until then, guys, take care.